Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 15th, 2026, 6 p.m. meeting of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. We're happy to have each one of you here with us this evening, and those joining us on our social media pages as well. We're happy to have you there as well. Commissioner Pace Davis is still home taking care of her wonderful additions to her family. I talked with her today, and she's hoping to be back in action maybe in the July meeting, but she's monitoring everything very closely at home and taking care of the two twin girls, so we're excited for her. It is customary that we begin our meetings with an invocation and a pledge. I've asked Commissioner Stevens to lead us in our invocation and Commissioner Godwin to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. If you choose to do so, please stand with us now as we observe it.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for bringing us together today. Please grant us the wisdom, humility, and discernment as we serve our community. Help us to treat another with respect, recognizing the dignity and equality of every person. May our decisions be guided by integrity and focused on the greater good of all those that we represent. And it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. Face the flag and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Our first item on the agenda is the approval and discussion of the agenda this evening. You've had an opportunity to look it over. Do I hear any changes?
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of changes. If we could remove item 6 and then add item 8A, Johnston County Public Schools request for Clayton High School construction manager.
Okay. We have a motion with two adjustments.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Agenda is set. Item number 2 is a consent agenda. There's 8 items on that. It's approval of the minutes from the May 18, 2026, 6 p.m. meeting. Department of Transportation additions to the system. Approval of the municipal funding agreement between the town of Kenly and Johnston County. We have an emergency services request to receive the Duke Energy Storm Preparedness Grant. And then planning and zoning resolution for denial for case 2601. We have the US 70 Quarter Commission appointments, Alliance Health Board of Directors appointment, and then there's 2 budget revisions, one for the jail for $922.86, and one for the Sheriff's Department for $30,600.33. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let the number say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that moves on. We move next to our public comment section of the agenda, and first I'd like to ask Mr. Greg Walker from the Soil and Water Conservation to come up and provide some information for the board, and I think you've got someone with you, Mr. Walker.
Yes, and that happens is with me to keep me halfway straight if I can't manage to do so myself. Thank you, Susie, for putting that on the screen there for everybody. I am I guess I got a short amount of time to talk about a whole lot of stuff, but I'm looking for find ways to bring outside funds in for our farmland preservation effort. So I've been advised there's a couple opportunities coming up, one federal, one state. We've done this before. So the federal opportunity is the RCPP grant that we did 2 years ago for $12 million. It got pulled back in 25. I've been advised it's going to be a sign up. They don't know exactly when, short time, fuse. So I'm kind of here tonight to kind of get this kind of started where you guys can understand and concur with what I'm trying to do with it. On the slides, the numbers are just like we did in 24. And so I think that we have, from the commissioner's point of view and input, we have talked about that figure of 600,000, this kind of that rollback, Rick, if you will, as a number to put in this particular application. And we worked last time. We landed a $12 million grant. So let's try that again if we can. And I'm guesstimating on this little chart that it would start in 28 program year. That's not that far off. So if we're lucky and fortunate here, might can pull in some pretty significant funds to help us leverage out even more funds. So that is the biggie tonight that I want to get your concurrence in, and of course ask questions. On the second slide, Susie, is the second opportunity, and it's coming up just almost exactly on the same timeline. And this is with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. We did this last year successfully. There's a program that they have put out in the state. It's called Ag Growth Zones, and it's really an incentive to get more local input and funds in the farmland preservation game. And so they've offered to match you 1-to-1 if they have enough money in their budget to do it. So that $600,000, Rick, that we have been using here, we'll use that same number right here for this one. And this past year, if you look at that top line on there, we were able to leverage $335,000 some change. And that is set in 2 of our easements that's coming up to close by August. So we did pretty well with that. So, you know, it's coming up again in August, that application period, so I'd love to try it again. And so that's really my message tonight is one USDA opportunity and one NCDA. Time's coming up, and just trying to gear ourselves, gear up to handle it. So that's my message tonight. I think I'm probably over my time now.
Okay.
Anybody have a question, I'll be happy to answer, or I can take them later.
Any questions for Mr. Walker on this very important project?
I would just ask, are we talking just one project for the NCDA?
All right, well, this
Or
past year, we've split that
Right.
money in half.
Okay.
Did it in two ways, but it can, it depends on how the money starts to come in, and just how do you put the project together.
Okay.
We'll have to see how it goes.
So it could be one, it could be multiple.
Could be,
just depends.
yes, right.
Okay.
I had a couple comments, if I could. So this is something that I think is very interesting, and I think not enough people know how hard we are working to preserve farmland. So just to summarize it, I'd like to kind of give the simple man's version, and you make sure I'm telling you right. So the county has a program, as most counties do, called PUV, present use value. So when property is farmland, it's taxed at a much lower rate.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, that property may be sold. And when it is sold, there's money that's collected, and we call it a PUV holdback or clawback? Clawback, okay? And so that money is then put into this fund so that we have money to preserve future farmland.
Yes.
And so that is something I don't think that I've done a good job explaining, and try to make sure that folks understand where that money is exactly coming from that we're using to preserve the farmland.
Right.
And then we're able to give it to you guys and able to go out and preserve more farmland for the future.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
There was no question, but it was right on mine.
I just wanted to make sure I had it right, so.
You did.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Well, and to further expand on that, just food for thought. Typically, when it comes out of PUV, it's going because it's going to be turned into something obviously different. So a commercial or residential development, and typically it's the buyers who are paying that fee in lieu. So a lot of times it's not even falling on behalf of the sellers. So it's a win-win for the
That's it.
county and our farmers.
Good clarification.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Walker? No. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate
That's
that
great.
very much. This is the public comments section of the agenda. Anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board, please come do so at this time. Please state your name, general location, and town or township of residence. In order to balance the needed desire for citizens to express themselves, and we do ask that you keep it to about 3 minutes, and also avoid repetitiveness. If there's groups that have all the same concern, maybe perhaps pick a spokesperson. But at this time, if you would like to come forth and present to the board, we'll be glad to have you.
Go first again.
All right. Please state your name and general township, town or township for the record.
I missed the
please.
township last time. I'm Ben Chapman, Clayton, and I'm here to discuss a strategic priority, county employees. Johnston County Public Schools is the largest employer in this county. Thousands of teachers, counselors, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, administrators, and support staff dedicate their careers to serving our children. They are governed by the Board of Education, but they are still county employees and therefore your concern. That's why I'm here. I'm absolutely outraged by the recommendation to remove the words pregnancy, childbirth, gender identity, and sexual orientation from policy 7100. It removes clarity, it removes certainty, and it raises the question, why are these specific categories being removed, being singled out for removal? This is the third attempt in a year and a half to remove sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination protections. Why? The vice chair of the board reassured the public last year that this would not be brought up again unless state or federal law changed. Kay Carroll is correct. Federal non-discrimination protections have not changed. Training that Johnston County employees already takes covers all manner of discrimination to ensure the county or the school district isn't held liable, because we'd have to pay. I'm outraged because Michelle Antoine states that pregnancy discrimination has been illegal for decades, but still wants to remove the language for no clearly stated reason. I'm outraged because this Board of Education itself is broadcasting to the community that gay and lesbian employees are less than other employees, not entitled to equal articulated protections in local policy. It's hateful and it's wrong. I'm outraged because this is a performative action being taken in a county where LGBTQ people have been subjected to hateful acts and threats in recent memory. The recommendation from the policy committee is wrong. After local students had their event canceled due to threats of violence on this very block, I helped organize a rally for hope on Harvey Milk Day. We gathered the student club and listened to their message. We heard from one of the first openly LGBTQ elected officials in Johnston County, and we listened. Please stand up and speak up for Johnston County Public School students and employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Anyone else who would like to address the board? Please come forth at this time. All right, come on up, state your name and township for the record. Hey there.
Hi, my name is Mary Barbara Staunton. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I live in Clayton. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm from down home, North Carolina, and it is an organization here and in other rural counties where we are very interested in working class folks, some of the folks who in certain communities kind of get left behind, and that they don't always get their voices heard. And we are also interested in trying to help promote some of those folks for elected offices and things like that, that where they can feel like that they can contribute in that kind of way, where their talents lie and their intelligence lies. So I just wanted to let you know that we care so much about the folks who are in that middle to working class, to those who need the social safety net, that we're really concerned about how these federal cuts from the big, beautiful bill act, and also from the state legislator cuts that are happening and going to be on the ballot in November to be voted on, will affect that whole range of population. And when I say that, I think about, and we kind of came up with the idea, that that big bad bill is what we call it, just opinion of the group that I'm with, is kind of like that fairy tale that we all remember from growing up, and that is the three little pigs and the big bad wolf. And this bill is going to be, among other things, cutting Medicaid, cutting SNAP benefits, cutting things that people, for whatever reason in their life, need. And I think that we need to start looking at how those things are going to affect our citizenry here in Johnston County. And when we talk about that, we can talk all day long, but we need you as partners to talk with us about it and to hear from you about whether those issues are also bothering you or you're concerned about them, what's coming down the pike. And we presented a a transparency resolution 2 weeks ago, and we hadn't heard anything back from anybody about that. But we would like the opportunity for our group and other groups who are concerned about it to talk with you all about what your concerns are also, and how we can together work to mitigate some of these problems that are coming down the pike. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Stone. Anyone else who'd like to speak at public comment? Please come forward and state your name and township for the record.
Hi, good evening,
Good
Commissioners.
evening.
My name is Jess Bingham. I might be a little bit of a familiar face. I live in downtown Clayton. You may remember the last time I stood before you, I shared some personal details about being a Clayton resident for 18 years, about my husband serving honorably in the Army, and about a time that I relied on SNAP benefits and Medicaid after the birth of my baby girl because she needed some life-saving care. And because of those benefits, I was able to be there for her. I shared about my past, but today I would like to share about the present. My husband currently attends and works at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. He's pursuing his master's in education. Our son recently graduated from Clayton High in December. He graduated early, so I'm going to toot that horn a little bit on his behalf. And my daughter is about to start high school in the fall. I'm a certified financial education instructor and do financial consulting. You can say that Jesus and education are two big focal points in our lives and really drive what we do. We believe as a household in the power of knowledge and how education only fosters growth and strength as a community. I work with people every day in very simple terms to recognize that every decision comes with costs and benefits, financial or otherwise, and how to weigh those factors appropriately. For example, I have the benefit of standing before you tonight to be heard, to exercise one arm of my civic duty. But the cost is a little bit of time away from my family tonight. And who knows what's going on the dinner plate? I'm just kidding. My husband is actually the cook in the household. Jesus. But I stand here to implore you to give the knowledge to the public by means of transparency to also weigh those costs and benefits. We know that the big beautiful bill is having an impact on the state level, specifically for Medicaid and for SNAP. Either these benefits will suffer even more, services that have helped hardworking Americans like myself get back on their feet again, but also, or there will be money needed from somewhere, and we deserve to know that impact clearly. We also know that House Bill 1089, property tax limit, State Bill 1080, state income tax cap, are coming down the pipeline as well. At first glance, these both sound like wonderful things, but there is always a cost to every benefit. Our property taxes and state income taxes are the key sources of revenue that fund our public education. That actually got me started at Johnston Community College in accounting. So I firmly believe in our public education and our health and human services. 60% of our entire general fund, you can tell I like to dig into numbers, is funded by property tax and state income tax. And just about 20% go to health and human services, 60% go to our public education. So that is 80% is being funded. So I guess my questions are things like, where will we get the money to improve our schools? Clayton High School is definitely ready for a huge upgrade, for sure. I remember a time my son was going to Polenta Elementary, and he had no teacher for half of his first grade year because they could not find a replacement teacher. He had substitute after substitute. And I believe they still have that temporary classrooms that were supposed to be replaced years ago. So we're talking about a decade. So we definitely have some improvements in our school systems waiting to be able to add new schools to our growing communities and attract good teachers. How will we fund vital health resources for our population, especially for those who may be feeling the pain of less SNAP and Medicaid assistance? They're going to be relying on local assistance more than ever. What impact does this have in 5 to 10 years when my children are out of the house and starting families? How will we address the exponentially growing cost of housing, which neither one of these bills really addresses that or resolves that? These line items in our state and local budgets are only going to grow, especially if we want our local economy and towns to flourish. Do we not deserve as the public to know what the proposed tax limits will be, what kind of gap that will create in our local budget, and what the plan is to handle those gaps? As a collective of people, if we do not know, we can't plan. This is something that I teach my clients every single day. And if we can't plan, we can't have a voice. And we, the people, have put elected officials such as yourselves in office to represent that voice and protect it. So without transparency, there is no knowledge, and essentially the public doesn't have that voice. So this is what I'm asking today, is just your commitment to that transparency, to allow the public to make informed, knowledgeable decisions, and like it was stated before, to have you all at a seat at the table, because it is a conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today, and allowing me to stand before you.
Thank you, Ms. Bingham.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak during citizen comments? I'd ask that you please try to stay around 3 minutes. If you would, please, state your name for the record, town and town.
Yes, I absolutely will.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, for allowing us to speak today. My name is Gail Mooney, and I am currently residing in Clayton. In a prior lifetime, I was a community advocate, a county commissioner, and at another time, a state representative in another state. But familiar with the idea of passing budgets and what that looks like on a local level, as well as what it looks like on a state level. Currently, I'm retired, but I'm still a community advocate, and today I stand before you with Down Home. I'm here, as well as the others, for the transparency resolution. And I know that one of the burning questions is, why would you want to engage in a resolution to transparency for the future of our county when it comes to budgetary numbers? As stated before, we have Federal House 1, HR 1, that took effect partially last year and will take fully effect this year following the election. In addition, we have the two ballot measures, the income tax cap and the property tax revenue cap, both which will affect local government's ability to be able to establish budgets based on the needs of their populations. As county commissioners, advocating for the public's long-term best interest may seem somewhat counterintuitive since you all are elected office holders. But I would challenge that this becomes the very essence of the job. That once elected, local government has a paramount duty to serve all the public, regardless of political affiliation, race, creed, color. Makes no difference. You represent all of us. And there's no one special group that will be affected more than another. However, we will all feel it. We will all feel the effects. And the question becomes then, I think, to you, is how do you plan to address that? In a budget that is based off of revenue that will come in from the federal level, it will come in from the state level, and it will come in from the local level. You have a three-legged stool. So if you take one away, or if you even break one of them in half, the stool falls over. And so the analogy holds true almost perfectly for what it is that we're talking about. In the case of each of these, both federal and state amendments, the effects to your ability to govern and build a budget next year based on the revenues that you will be taking in, and knowing that you will be hobbled, and in some cases really severely. It will affect our public schools. It will affect our health care. It will help hurt disaster recovery. Our first responders will be affected. It goes all the way down the line. So respectfully, I would say that the point of sharing to the public is exactly your job today. We look to you as leaders. We look to you as advocates on our behalf. And a proactive approach to that today, and excuse me, I'm getting dry mouth, but a proactive approach to how you disseminate information makes all the difference in the world to the people who live here to be able to make decisions now for the effects that will come later. And they need to know that just as much as you need to know that. So I thank you very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Moody.
Can I ask Ms. Moody one quick question?
Yes,
What state were you from?
North Dakota.
Okay, good, thank you.
It's much smaller, but have big problems.
Thank you. Anyone
Yes.
else who would like to speak during public comment? There you go.
Good evening, and
Good
thank
evening.
you for allowing me to speak.
Sure.
I'll be really short, I promise.
Just
My
take-
name is,
Yeah, there you go, go
can you-
ahead.
okay. My name is Shannon Halber, and I live in Flowers Plantation, and I'm a United States Air Force veteran.
Thank you for your
We
service.
are, you're very, very welcome. We are in this all together, as my colleagues and friends have just stated, but I'm going to tell you a cautionary tale. In 2005 to 2007, my family and I lived in Moscow, Russia, in an expat community. It was a wonderful experience, but this was about, 15, 20 years after the Soviet Union fell. And I had a housekeeper named Elena. And I got to know her. She spoke perfect English, which was lucky for me. And in the Soviet days, she had been a teacher of music in the schools. Her husband was a retired colonel from the Soviet Army. And she was cleaning the houses of American and British expats. And I know in my heart that when she was a young woman in school, getting married, having children, and teaching, she never thought in those days, I don't know how many here remember the Soviet days, but that she'd ever be cleaning the houses of American and British citizens. Nothing wrong with that kind of work, but she had been a teacher, she was educated, and she was doing that. I think that story stays with me now, knowing, because we think these bills are going to adversely affect the poor, and they will, but they will affect all of us. Might not me, because I'm retired, but my daughter, who knows in 20 years, because when the system fails and there's nothing to support us, we're all going to pay the price. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howell.
Thank
All right, anyone else who would like to come forth and speak during public comment? Please state your name for the record, town and township. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Brian Pace, no relation as far as I'm aware. I don't actually live in a town, I'm in the county off of Flower Hill Road. And while I am here today with the Down Home people, I am relatively new to this kind of stuff, and my daughter is a student at our schools. We all kind of know that budget cuts are coming. We know that it's going to get difficult. And nobody's asking for y'all to have answers now. Nobody's asking for y'all to be able to wave a magic wand and make it all go away. Nobody is asking for y'all to be able to tell the future and let us know what is going to go on right now. What people are asking for is that y'all are willing to work with us to prepare for the hard times that everybody knows are coming due to these cuts. People who are currently hurting are going to end up hurting more. And some of them, I mean, they're really on their last leg as it is, taking away funding for healthcare or for our schools or for our fire departments it's going to be difficult. But I think, like, if y'all work with the people of the county, we can all kind of get through this together. And, like, just talk to us. Like, yeah, we can come up here and we can talk at y'all, but we need to be having a conversation on the same level, at the same table, working on the same problems. Y'all have been elected to lead this county, and I understand that is a difficult job, and I don't envy y'all's position, especially because the budget cuts are not in y'all's control. They're coming down from on high, and God forbid these amendments pass in November, then it's going to get even worse. But the people have a right to know what the cuts are going to be. We have a right to know what schools are going to be affected in what way. We have a right to know what fire departments may get less funding and may need to pick up more volunteers and stuff like that. Like, we can't do this on our own as the people. We don't have those levers in our control. So this is something that we need y'all to come to the table, and we need y'all to be transparent with us about what is going to happen, when it's going to happen, as best y'all can. I'm not saying, know what it is today, but as soon as y'all find out, start working with us to make a plan to prepare for it. And that's really all I'm kind of asking for right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Please state your name and town or township for the record.
Hey y'all, I'm Marquette. I'm a fellow organizer with Down Home, North Carolina. We were here last time, y'all know us. We're up here a lot, and y'all have the transparency resolution that we presented. And we'll also send a digital copy to Miss Dana Cuddington. But we know the budget deficits are coming as a result of the big, beautiful bill that was passed, H.R. 1. And I hope that, just like the rest of us hope, that the proposed constitutional amendments, SB 1080 and 1089, that would cap our property and income tax at a dangerously low rate will not pass, because like Brian said just a second ago, that's going to increase the deficit. And y'all tell me, it's going to be a more difficult thing to manage with increasing loss of funds, and that's going to mean increasing loss of services for all of us, and like also like Brian said and Gail said, some of us are on our last leg, and what does that look like? Increased homelessness, not having the ability to get our needs met. And as county commissioners, I genuinely hope that you hear that, and it makes you ache, and it makes you want to tell us what's going on, and it makes you want to sign our transparency resolution to advocate for us. So we're going to get on the agenda for July 20th so that we can formally present the transparency resolution, and hope that you guys will sign it to hold a hearing, to present to everyone in Johnston County, to let them know H.R. 1 is cutting funding to our counties. Folks need to know that, because they don't know. They do not know. And we canvass, we talk to a lot of people, and these are folks that need to know. So we'll be back July 20th to present that resolution, and hope that you guys sign it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else for public comment? Sure. Yeah. Just state your name for the record and town or township, please.
Okay. I am Caitlin Marsh. I live in the Cleveland area, so technically Smithville, but Cleveland's still unincorporated. I just want to say thank you to you guys for everything that you do. You've done amazing. I know how deeply you care about our community and how much you were trying to resolve any issues at hand. And I look forward to seeing any resolution you come up with going forth. I know that we often talk about the budget cuts as one of the main issues that are happening in Johnston County, but I think one of our bigger issues is the water deficit and what is happening there. So I know that's one of the big concerns right now. So just want to say thank you for everything that you guys are doing, and I appreciate it. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Okay. Seeing that, we do have two emails from Lieutenant Commander Shannon Peterson, U.S. Navy retired, has sent in two emails. We'll enter those into the public record also. All right. I will close the public comment portion of the meeting, and we'll move on to item. Did you have something?
I was just going to ask, or actually encourage, those that just spoke, we're literally going to be going through the budget process and some of the ways that we are hoping to answer some of these questions or hopefully calm some of your fears. And so I just encourage everyone to stay, to listen to how we arrive at these numbers and the discussions that are had. I think it would be very, very beneficial for everybody, because we do want to listen, but we also want to make sure that we are articulating, you know, the concern that we share with y'all, and making.
This evening?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I'll check to see if at least one of us can't be a representative to sit in and be able, and then in the future, when you have additional conversations around the budget, then we'll just make sure that we are able to stay for the duration. How's that sound?
Good.
Because you're early in the process, I'm sorry to ask you
No,
this
we're-
question. Are you early in the process or you're far along?
No, ma'am,
We're late.
we're moving along with it, so,
Moving along.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to item number 4, the cost of community services study and physical impact model presentation. I think Ms. Morphus is here with Creative Consulting to present. There she is.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello. It's
Hey.
good to be in front of you to deliver information on the cost of services study and the fiscal impact model. These are 2 projects that you approved earlier this year, actually late last year, approved these 2 studies that are really a look back and a look forward. The cost of services study is a look back into fiscal year 24-25 actual budget revenues and expenditures. And the fiscal impact model is a way to look forward and make projections that will help with land use planning and decision making. I'm going to first talk about the cost of community services study. So that study evaluates the fiscal impacts of land uses of residential, agriculture, and I'll use the word commercial to include all non-residential and non-agricultural uses. So that's commercial, industrial, all non-residential and agriculture. And to help inform planning and zoning decisions, your board and communities like yours, especially fast-growing communities, grapple with a lot of growth analyses and questions, and this type of analysis provides some information to help you with that decision-making. We use the American Farmland Trust model. I'll talk about that, and it really supports agriculture and open space preservation. And also, this is really an analysis that will help you with long-term fiscal sustainability. So it's, again, some information that will help you with decision-making. Do you have the PowerPoint? Yeah. Well, as she's pulling that up, I'll talk about the methodology. So the methodology I mentioned is the American Farmland Trust approach. It is a national model that is used by governments across the United States, as well as, as well as universities and other agencies. And again, it's been used in this state by universities like NC State University, Mount Olive University, and many others as a trusted approach across the country to model the impacts on different land uses. I mentioned that we used fiscal year 24-25 actual revenues and actual expenditures. That is a really good, strong look, again, at what actually happened in that fiscal year. We allocated revenues and expenditures by those 3 land use categories. Where it is very clear, we used a default, and I'll talk about what that is. Where it was not clear, or there were maybe some nuances, we worked with your department heads, and I can't say enough about the quality staff, professional staff you have, and the important help that they provided, and I'll give a couple of examples of that. So they were very helpful in the analysis. This is a screenshot of one of the tables, which is the actual revenues by land use category. And you'll see at the very top, we worked with your finance office and finance staff to develop a default breakdown. And so that default is based on the portion of ad valorem tax revenue that's generated by each land use. And you'll see the breakdown of about 73% for residential, 26% for commercial, and 0.9% for ag. So that's the default. So in the table, wherever you see default, that is the breakout. And then there are, when we were looking at the revenues and expenditures, if it's very clear, like citizens use libraries, residential, businesses collect sales tax, that's commercial, it's pretty clear, you'll see how that's broken out. On the next slide, you'll see a screenshot of expenditures, and I want to highlight a couple of examples. EMS, for example, we worked with the department director in EMS. It was very helpful, and they were able to break down their revenues and expenditures by commercial, agriculture, and residential. But then there was a portion that was broken out to default for just general traffic. So sometimes department have a general level of activity that supports the entire county. And then above that general level, then we could estimate some specific residential, commercial, or agriculture use. Another one, inspections. Inspections, has data on, are they inspecting a commercial facility? Are they inspecting a residential facility? So we use their data to do the breakout, and you'll see in the report, the column on breakdown clearly defines how we broke out each category. Planning is another department that has a base of activity. They do general planning for the whole county, but then they do, on top of that general planning, some specific planning for business parks or for residential developments, for example. So you can see the breakdown. And again, where it says default is the default breakdown of revenue based on ad valorem taxes, and that we worked with your finance department to get that.
Excuse me, let me ask one
Yes,
question,
sir.
please. And that expenditures planning, for example.
Yes.
If you add these columns together, would that be the total budget for the planning
Yes, it is,
department?
yes. If you look at, on the table, the first line of figures, actual expenditures, is the total amount expended or total amount of revenue.
Gotcha.
And then you'll see the breakdown, and they should add up because they did in my Excel worksheet. Okay. On revenues and expenditures, when we totaled them out, about 61% of revenue comes from residential property taxes and other revenue related to residents. And you'll see at the bottom that you spend about 90% of your budget on residents, and 38% of your revenue comes from commercial property, and you spend about 9% on it. And 0.61% of revenue comes from ag, but then you spend about 0.51%. So when we develop the ratios, it starts with those figures, and then we develop the ratio of dollars of revenue and expenditures. So on this chart, you will see the total revenues, this is again fiscal year 24-25 actual, that the county received in revenue, about $143 million from commercial and industrial, about $2.3 million from ag, and about $231 million from residential. And you'll see some corresponding expenditures. And we use that to then develop the ratios that you see below that. And I'll explain that a little bit more detail. But there are two ways to look at the ratios. One is the county receives $4.40 in revenue for every dollar it expends on commercial use, or for every $1 in revenue, you expend 23 cents. It's the same ratio, just looking at it in two different ways. You'll see the ratio for ag is positive as well. And then for residential, costs the county $1.43 for every dollar it receives in revenue. These figures, again summarized on this page, are very common. It's what is found in the American Farmland Trust Model in most every community that it has studied. And we know this just by the work that we do in planning and development, that businesses, commercial businesses, pay more in their taxes than they receive in public services. And it's because businesses don't send children to schools. Businesses don't use human services. You as a county government are required to provide certain levels of human services and education for residents, and also you provide other types of public services as well. So for every dollar in property tax revenue generated by residential use, the county spends $1.43. For every dollar generated by commercial and business use, the county spends 23 cents. And then ag is also positive. For every dollar in revenue, you spend less than $1 or 81 cents. So when I get to the fiscal impact model, I'll kind of reference back to this. One of the questions that has come up in some discussion with staff and others about these figures is the break-even point of a house. If we looked at the fiscal year 24-25, again, actual numbers, the break-even point in the model for a house is $371,400. So every home valued, and this is household, so it's not just single-family home, it's a household, which are different types of housing units in this county, household. Less than that is subsidized, and of course, the lower the value, the more subsidized it is. So I can go back and answer some questions, but that's a break-even point. I'll go on to the fiscal impact model and kind of show you or talk about how they work together. The fiscal impact model is a look forward and making projections and estimates forward for fiscal. The cost of services study is a look back on actually what happened in a specific fiscal year. It's another way to support decision making in the future and another way to guide growth and investment. So one way to analyze the future, to think about the future, is you can start at that very high level from the cost of services study. That's a very 30,000 foot level to think about the impact of residential. So we took a 100 home development at an average home value of $400,000, and it would generate about $268,000 in revenue at the tax rate in fiscal year 26. And it would cost the county about $383,000. That's that $1.43. So if you just at a very high level look at $1 in revenue and $1.43 in expenditures, this is what an example 100 home community, 100 home residential development would cost the county. So that's a 30,000 foot level. Yes.
My question was back on the previous slide, and it kind of relates to this one as well. You said a $371,000 home was the break even.
Yeah.
Break even as in dollar for $1 is $1?
No, so that is if you took the total amount of residential property tax revenue, just property tax revenue, and the amount the county spends on households, that's the amount to break even on expenditure per household. So
Okay.
the county, I'll have to go back and look at my notes, but the county spends like $2,400, for example, per household. Then you equate that up to the value of home to get your $2,400 out of it.
So I guess that leads me into my next question then. If the next scenario, they're all $400,000 homes,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be more upside down than the previous
Yes,
analysis.
so this is just an example that we used in the model. You can put in a $300,000 home or a $500,000 home. We just use this as an example for the calculation.
Okay.
Yes. I'll talk about how the model is dynamic as well. So it's dynamic meaning it can be constantly updated.
So back to the question. So if a $371,000 home uses $2,400 services and is taxed at $2,400, is that what you're saying? It's a break even? Is that what?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's break even on fiscal year 24-25 expenditures.
So my
That's a snapshot in time. Yeah.
So my question, and I'm sure I'm just not understanding it, but if a $400,000 home seems as though it would even be a little better than break even.
Yes, in fiscal year 24-25 at that service level.
Okay.
Yes.
So 100 of them ought to be 100 times,
Yeah.
100 more than break even.
370. Yes.
But to the good or to the bad?
To the good.
That's okay.
Yeah, to the good.
I'll just let you proceed. I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I'll catch up. Yeah.
So maybe
I need to be
You're
called
right.
up.
We're
Yeah.
hearing it the
Number-
opposite of what
yeah,
you're
the-
saying.
Yeah.
So I'm tracking what you're saying, because if you assume our tax rate's based on the value of the house, and it seems that the house value is higher, then the scale should tip the other way. But it sounds like just on the information that was just presented, it's going this way, and I think that's where we're confused.
Okay, so let me go through the fiscal model, and
Okay.
maybe that'll answer some
All right.
questions. Okay. So the fiscal impact model is a dynamic model. It is built in an Excel workbook, and it is designed for your staff to update and to use on an ongoing basis. So there are data points in the model, things like the number of households in Johnston County, the number of school-aged children, for example. We've got information on retail sales spending. So the model is, again, an Excel workbook with a lot of data points. There are also some assumptions in the model, and we'll talk about those. And the model has been tested, and then your staff will be trained to update it and maintain it. This is an example of some of the assumptions. So we use population from 2024 from the State Office of Budget and Management. We derived total number of school-aged children. We then got a number of school-aged children per household of 0.492, 46 children per household, and then we put in your tax rate. So there's several assumptions in the model. So going forward, the staff person in Johnston County who uses this model can update the tax rate. They can update the number of households. They can update the number of school-aged children as it goes forward. And with the cost of services, that $371,400 number can be updated as the information becomes more available. So again, that was a snapshot in time. This is an example of some information, again, assumptions that are built out in the model. So again, I mentioned that the number of school-aged children per household on average is 0.492. That's a pretty generic assessment. In talking with Dr. Pierce at the schools, a much better number would be a detailed what's called student generation rate for Johnston County schools. And I understand that they would like to work toward developing that. Some school systems develop very precise demographic data that yield student generation dates by district, by housing type, and by we can put it in for a district, so we would know how many children would be proposed to go to elementary school in this district, or middle school in this district, or high school. So once that data is available, then it can be inputted into the model, and it can become more precise than it is right now, which is 0.492 children. We also know the per pupil spending in this last fiscal year, and that can be updated when that is changed as well. And when we look at the number of children that would be proposed in that 100 home example neighborhood, then we and the model have district school capacity. So you can look and see whether the schools are nearing capacity or above capacity before you approve a development. Similarly with water and sewer, we use a generic $4,500 a month for water and sewer, which is what your Public Works Department uses. And again, that can be updated. If Public Works decided that they wanted to change that standard, the model can then be changed. And then we have the district capacity listed in the water and sewer so that district capacity can be checked. And you'll see we've analyzed Human Services, Parks and Rec, and there are others that we've analyzed based on the cost of services study. So where I mentioned you can use the $1.43 is this 30,000 foot level, we wanted to get more granular, and that's what the fiscal impact model will do. So as we get more granular, we can tell by that 100 home proposed development at 0.492 children per household, how many children could be in that neighborhood, and at the per pupil spending, that it could cost $131,000 in useful spending, for example. We know based on the public service information from cost of services how much it costs to serve one household in Johnston County times 100 new households, for example. For water and wastewater capacity, we can look then check the district capacity for those. And then on the revenue side, in addition to general fund revenue, you also have sales tax revenue, and we have a set of assumptions around that, and we also have vehicle tax revenue. So your staff person could input a 50 home development at $200,000, a 75 home development at $310,000, a 200 home development at $525,000, and inputting that data will then produce this type of information that shows the impact by different categories or different departments and spending levels. So one of the things that's very important for me to say is that all of this works together. Businesses need workers, and workers need a place to live, and people want to live in a place that has green space and parks, and they want to live in a place that has amenities, and they want to have housing options. Businesses want to be able to recruit lots of different type of workers with varied housing options. So even though residential does not pay for the level of public services that government provides, it's extremely important to think about the balance in the community, the balance that is needed between rooftops, because rooftops will bring the type of retail that you want, and businesses need those rooftops because they need workers. So it's all intertwined together. I'll kind of wrap up and then go back to your questions and answer other questions. The next step is to train someone on the county staff to update the fiscal impact model, to keep that information current, and to update it for this coming fiscal year, for example. Our team is on hand to check in on the updates and provide any support to your staff. And then we'll do a one-year checkup and review of the model as well. Okay.
All right.
So I'll be glad to answer questions.
Questions
You all look
or-
like you have good questions.
Lots of questions.
It would seem to discourage affordable housing.
So, again, businesses need workers, and workers need housing. And businesses need all types of workers, skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled workers. And you want to live in a place that has diverse communities and that has green space and amenities that don't pay for itself, that provide that return. So think about it in terms of as one guide for planning, but with an eye toward a very balanced community.
Well, speaking of balance, we had learned, we had a doctor of economics come and talk to us year before last, Dr. Dorfman. And one of the statistics was that 77% of our workforce leaves the county every day to work somewhere else. Now, those are people that are taking their money outside the county during the day. They're not employed here. Obviously, we would like to be able to have those people come back in and keep their expenditures here locally rather than surrounding counties. He also, I'm a little intrigued by the break-even point at 371,400. Dr. Dorfman had done extensive studies in Georgia and around the Atlanta area, and he says, I don't have the hard data in front of me, but what I know about this area, he said, I would expect your break-even point would be around $750,000 house.
So that 371 is not, we did not calculate the figure that completely pays for its services, if you will, in the future going forward. That's just a look back on all your housing stock.
Okay.
So that would be different.
Okay, all right.
But to your point about out commuting, that is a very good point. The data that are presented here reinforces why communities would not want to be primarily a bedroom community. Those communities that have 90% of their tax base as residential do not have a long-term sustainable revenue stream for the public services that they are offering citizens. That's why you need the mix of residential and commercial and agriculture.
Well, that's one of the things we were seeking to find out. What is the appropriate balance to ensure that we do have perfectly net positive revenue throughout?
Yeah. And I'll say that not all business is created equal. Johnston County has some capital-intensive industry sectors that are very important. We've done these studies in areas like municipalities that have more office or retail and very light commercial that are not heavily capitalized. And the figures are very different in that commercial does not pay as much of the burden of public services. But here you have some capital-intensive business sectors. So keep that in mind. And also, in thinking about that, agriculture is also very important too. As you know, it's a net positive as well. And sometimes it may not seem that way, but agriculture, like businesses, don't use as many public services as residents do.
Yes, we have a lot of life sciences here,
Yes.
pharmaceuticals, things like that nature, and they're capital intensive.
Yes.
They have built some very expensive facilities,
Yes.
which obviously they're going to pay more property taxes in those situations. So I think that has helped the scale quite a bit in our situation.
Yeah. One thing to think about are the levers. I like to, as an economist, think about the levers that you push. So if you have a lever where you are you have more capital-intensive companies, they're paying a greater share, for example, then your residents get more public services for their tax. If you have less commercial industrial or less capital-intensive, then residents are going to pay a greater share for public services, assuming the public services that you offer remain the same. The residents will pay a greater share. It's just like in every economic model, when you press one lever, it causes other levers to be moved.
I also noted in your report, you said that like farming, it does contribute to the positive column. But a big issue in this county is a more cultural things about living here. It's got open spaces, it's got woodland areas, et cetera, that make it attractive, but your model does not take any of that into consideration, as I understand it.
Not intangibles, but again, that's part of the really hard job that you all have, is those intangibles are important. No one of you, or probably anyone in the room, would want to live in a place that was just stacked like concrete building to concrete building to concrete building. That would maximize your tax revenue, but that's not a place where you want to live.
It's not very attractive.
It's not.
Yeah, I understood that, but I just wanted to hear you say it so that the people out there that interpret this report understand what are the limits of it.
That's right. If you had a place like that, then no one would live there, and there wouldn't be any workers, and then all the businesses would go.
Right.
So it's all related, and that's one of the hardest jobs that you have, is thinking about some of those intangible benefits like green space, which are very important to the community.
Going forward, our staff could use this model to analyze the impact of any proposed subdivision
Yes.
on our bottom line.
Yes, they can. Yes.
But it wouldn't be limited to just residential development, though?
The model, most of it is set up for residential, but you can use other aspects of it for commercial.
I was going to say, you don't have any children,
Yes.
you change your
That's
ratio to
right.
0.
That's right. You just put in 0 in that, and then you do not have the school spending rate. Yes.
What about the flexibility of different demographics within, say, a proposed subdivision? If it's over 50, for example, that school children number would
Yes,
change.
then your staff person who is analyzing the model, if it's like a 50 and older community, then would not include that in the model. In the retail spending assumptions, we did break it down and made 3 income categories based on different housing levels. And so your staff will be able to, based on the projected value of the homes, plug in one of those 3 income categories to then produce the retail spending, which would then produce the retail tax revenue.
I had a couple questions about this slide.
Yes, I can go back to that one.
On the right, where it says 268 general fund revenue, is that, does that include the 52 in sales tax and the 19?
That's independent.
Independent, okay, so the total of that's 340. Over on the left side, if I add those numbers up, it comes up to 285.
Yes, I
And-
didn't include every single number because the chart would have been so small.
Okay, all right, that's what's throwing me off.
Yeah, I picked some of the categories on the left that I thought you and others might be most interested in,
Okay.
but there are other categories on that as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if that total, I think that total, that even with included the ones that you left out, was 383, 420, I believe that's right, on the summary. And on the summary, though, it says 268 is the cost. I mean, is the what has actually been the revenue side of it. The 383 is the cost on the summary page. 383 is the cost, and 268 is the revenue. Is that correct?
That's, yes, property tax revenue, and then that is based on the $1.43 in general fund expenditures.
Gotcha. So, but these 100 homes also produce, as you said, sales tax revenue and vehicle tax revenue. So that 268 is actually 340, is what it
Yes.
actually
Yes, if you
goes
wanted
into
to
the
add that
pot.
together, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the dollar
Similar
in
here.
revenue and then expenditures is property tax revenue.
Okay.
I think the important thing, and you touched on this, is that it is a delicate balance. I know when we were talking with Vulcan Elements to open their facility, you know, one of the big questions was, is there a workforce? And is there, I think the number of people that we have in the county and the new workforce development center we had in 4 Oaks that we had invested in were 2 driving factors to help them choose Johnston County to locate. I remember back when my wife and I sat around the kitchen table doing our first business plans, and it was really important how many rooftops were within a mile and 2 miles and 3 miles and 5, and what the traffic counts were. I mean, all those things were things we looked at. You can't afford to invest in a business if there's no customers. If there's nobody, especially if it's retail. Ours was service, it was medical facilities. And so, you got to make sure you got enough patience to make things work. And so it's really important to recognize that it is a balance, and one doesn't come without the other. We're getting the Targets and the BJs and all these things now because we have enough people to support those things. There was a time that they would not come to this area because you didn't have enough people to shop there.
It's a good planning tool, if there is a proposed neighborhood, to have some estimate of the number of school children and then per pupil spending, to think about that, and then to look at district capacity. Can that school district accommodate those children? Same thing with water and sewer. Can that district accommodate the need for water and sewer, and that then impacts your capital improvement plan?
It also impacts our quality of life in terms of the cost of those utilities. Now, as I understand it, that's not factored into here. Just having adequate utilities is the only consideration that goes in this particular study. No actual dollar values from that. And you've done a very good job of footnoting all your data sources. And water and sewer, so this theoretical 100-home subdivision came from Public Utilities Department. And you said you used 4,500. I think you said $4,500, but it's gallons.
Or their gallons, sorry, yes.
Yeah, just wanted to correct that. But that's basically about 150 gallons per day per household, which is a real, that's conserving a lot of water, to be quite honest with you.
Glad you clarified that, because I was going to question, how long are they taking showers if they're spending $4,500 per household?
They don't have kids in there soaking in the shower like some of the things.
So that's a good kind of discussion. Since the model is dynamic, your staff, if your public works decides that the new estimate that they're going to work with is 4,800 gallons or whatever it is, then you plug that new one in, and the model then accommodates for that.
So we're seeing it from the standpoint that right now we're very pressed on water capacity. We have a plan to get more water, but it's not going to be inexpensive. And same is true for sewer. You're talking about things that really have some high price tags associated with them, but they're managed as enterprise funds, so they're supposed to be self-sustaining, so they don't really factor in necessarily to this type of analysis. But you've got to have it if you're trying to get the right balance of development in your neighborhoods to ensure you've got let's say, a balanced tax base.
Yes, that's right.
So it's part of the equation, but it's not a direct monetary contributor to it.
And I'll just again say thank you to all the department heads for their involvement in their work. And also thanks to Commissioner Stovall and Lauder, who in some email back to us after reading a draft report, caused us to go back through and do some fine tuning and to look and found a fat finger typo. I appreciate that. But I appreciate all the questions from council commissioners, as well as all the input from the department heads. It's been a joint effort.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So in the findings, there's a paragraph in bold that says, for every dollar in property tax and other revenues generated by residential land uses, and those other uses, I think, are those the sales tax revenue and the vehicle tax?
Yes.
So if those total up to 340 million, then wouldn't our number, when you do 383 divided by 340, is 1.126? So 1.43 seems askew that when we use all the numbers.
If you go to page 5, and you will see the residential revenue of $230,762,000, and you can see everything that's included in that. So that revenue includes all of the default breakouts as well. So you'll see there's $77,000 of disaster aid. There's $5 million from register of deeds. You'll see that $230 million. That's total allocation of revenue. And then on page 7, you'll see $329 million in expenditures, and you'll see that that's where the ratio comes from.
Okay.
From all revenue and all expenditures, including the default categories as well. So for example, EMS has some revenue attached to residential. And you'll see that GIS, we have a default that comes through there as well. So you'll see that's the total, the ratio is the total revenue and expenditure.
I think it's important for us all to remember that we're getting a set of formulas here that allow us to, as these dynamic conditions change, we can go back and reassess where we stand.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things on the horizon that are unknowns right now, and not the least of which is our North Carolina General Assembly. You know, they are going to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to limit property taxes. Well, that's local government's main source of income. If it's pulled or capped, then it presents some immediate challenges on, because it's the most predictable source of income as well. So we have to keep that in mind in terms of going forward and make sure that we keep our level of services to match what our population actually needs. But all of these factors are dynamic. If you got the formulas there, we can plug it in there and see where we stand. And this is the type of analysis that I have championed for a long time. I was on a citizen steering committee to develop our comprehensive land use plan for the next 20 years. And one of the recommendations that I insisted we put in there is that we needed a cost of community services study to show us where we truly stood in terms of the balance of our tax base. And now we have that tool, and I applaud your effort in that regard.
Thank you.
And I do have one last question, I promise.
I got something.
Okay.
You got my mathing over here.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's your fault.
We can have a work session.
That's right. So the, now I'm going to forget my question because of all that. So with the, go ahead, Butch. You go ahead.
So, if you go to, can you go to table 2?
Table, yeah, take that. There we go, that's part of it, that one.
So,
That's just, yeah,
yeah,
screenshot
so,
part of it.
yeah, so that's, that makes it under the title, I mean, that's revenues, and it says revenues and 73%, 26, and less than 1. But when you go to the next slide, it's got that same, it's expenditures, but it has,
Yeah, it's our default breakdown. If there is no other way to allocate, like, for example, the cost to administer these meetings here, we just use the default breakdown for a revenue and expenditure between the land use if there's no other clearly defined way to break it down. And that's the American Farmland Trust model for that.
so are you saying, I guess my question is a little, maybe to a typo, it says the default breakdown of revenue. Why is that
Oh,
revenue
I'm
instead of
sorry, it's
expenses?
expenditures, that is a typo.
Okay, but it's at 73, I thought it was 90. Well, it's almost the same, except it says 9% under agriculture, and then,
Yeah, it's-
I hate being so picky on this.
No,
but-
that's fine.
But on the next page, it says the revenue is 61%, but on those other table 2 and 3, it says 73% of revenue is residential, and 38, so there's a difference between whatever that page is after table 3, where it says 61, 38, and .61, where it says 73, 26, and .9, so I'm just,
So can you repeat that? I'm not following.
yeah, so if you look at those numbers, you got 73, 26.
Yes.
And 9 or .9.
Yes.
When you go to the revenue expenditures, more graphic, go down after table 3.
This one right here.
Yes.
Yes.
It says 61, 38, and .6, which
Yes,
is
so the
different than those others.
73, 26, and 9 is the default breakdown of ad valorem tax revenue by land use. So that's ad valorem tax revenue by land use. This is total revenue and total expenditure, which is more than ad valorem.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Okay.
I just want to make sure why
Yeah, I
those
just
numbers
wanted to
were
follow
different.
you.
Yeah. I just want to try to make sure why those were different.
Yes.
And I still have the math problem on the example of the 100 homes. I get you use 67 cents, I
Yes,
think was the number.
67.
Use 67. So I can get the income, the revenue. I still can't figure out how you got the higher number.
On expenditure?
Yeah, on that one example, the 100 home subdivision example, I still struggle with how the cost, when you said
This
the
one
break.
right here?
Is 379.
Yeah, when you said the break even is, 370 something.
Okay, so
All of them are
the
full.
way that the model, the Farmland Trust model calculates a break even is you take ad valorem tax revenue of residential, and then you ad valorem tax revenue. And then you break out, so you deduct from that ad valorem tax revenue, and then you deduct from that the other, I'll have to go through my notes, one of the other tax figures, and then you divide that by the number of households to get the amount of revenue per household. And that number is maybe $2,400. Then you take that and divide it by 0.0067, your tax rate, to then equate to the value of a home that would break even at $2,400 in tax revenue, in property tax revenue. Does that make sense?
We'll
But if
figure
you've
it
got
out.
100 houses that are all above that break even, then that should be a very profitable subdivision.
Yeah.
It would be based
right.
on 24.
You have to send us something with that, the math.
I'll send you a
worked out.
math on, Jocelyn Andrews and I are working on it.
Yeah, but, so, after all that nitpickiness I just went through, I do want to say, great job, because I know Commissioner Stovall, before he was commissioner, and I had many discussions on cost of community services, and my problem was not, what was really with, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And when I look, across counties and talk to people across the state, a lot of them did the study, and they didn't do anything with it. So I think one of the reasons we waited on the issue and the cost of community services was we want to have that financial model so we can say, okay, here's how we can use it. And so I think that was the big part. Just having a report and having a number really didn't help us, other than argue back and forth amongst the other people who saw something different than we did. But I do think that the financial model will provide a big difference for us to be able to.
Because right now, we got a snapshot in time, but we can go in there and take that snapshot at any given point in time going forward. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, so thank you for, I know it wasn't easy, and thank goodness our department heads are much easier to work with than this board, but thank you for that. I think it will help provide a nice tool for us to evaluate development and decide what that balance is going forward.
Good.
I got my question now.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
No, you already hit your last one.
no, go on. So, we are all trying to hit a magic number where everything is even and paying for itself, and it's very difficult. It's a moving number all the time. So my question is, I'm sure you've done this for other counties. How are we looking compared to other counties? And do you ever see a situation where residential is a one-to-one?
I have not seen any studies, of course, none that we have performed, or studies of of universities or through the American Farmland Trust model that shows that residential is 1-1 or a net positive. I have not seen that study. And your first question again?
How are we looking compared to other counties?
Yes, other counties. I would say that it is, you're in a better position than some counties, and I think that's because you have capital intensive, some industry sectors that are capital intensive. So the difference between the $1.43 and the 23 cents is on par with what we've seen with others in counties. Now again, municipalities are very different because municipalities do not fund education and human services, and they do not have generally the capital intensive industries that you have. So that ratio is much different. But yours is on par with other counties. And I think that as you think about that perfect balance, which is perfection is really hard, it's not really achievable. But thinking about working toward that balance, you are in the position you are in because you do have very strong industry sectors, you do have strong commercial growth, but yet you've been able to balance that with ag, which is a net positive, and also with green space, and you've made this a beautiful place to live. So far, the leadership in Johnston County has done a pretty good job.
Thank you.
Would you say that again?
So far,
Seriously, we did not say her to say that.
pretty good job, yes.
I just wanted to comment real quick. First of all, this is exactly this is what keeps us up at night. This is what we do all day, every day, is try to figure out what the balance of this looks like. At the end of the day, it is all about the community, and it is we couldn't have paid you to be here on a better night, and I'm so grateful because this has been so good. I feel like as an exercise of transparency of what we are going through and what we are doing, you know, with people as yourselves, with our departments, with each other as commissioners, and working on formulas to figure out how can we make sure we don't let Johnston County get in a bind, no matter what is coming down, you know, to Commissioner Stovall's point, no matter what is coming down the pipeline. You know, it's important to us that we are protecting every one of these sectors because at the end of the day, the nucleus is our community and the citizens of Johnston County. So thank you so much for being so gracious and answering all of our questions and being as detail oriented as you are so that we can manipulate these numbers moving forward to make sure that, you know, to your point, nobody's figured out how to do it perfectly yet to make, you know, every household pay for itself. And we know businesses can't thrive without them and, you know, same thing with workforce, but thank you for creating a tool or helping us with a tool to figure out how we can push and pull those levers to get it as close as we possibly can.
Any other comment? Mr. Rhodes? You got one more?
I got one more.
All right. Vice Chairman Lawrence, go right ahead, sir.
Any wow, when you did this, anything, when you looked at our numbers, you said like, wow? Or wow, with an exclamation point? Like a
Not in the
wow.
numbers, but what I would say is a wow, and, you know, I've been in economic development, I'd just say more than 25 years. And when I hit that, I'd just say more than 25 years. But in economic development, more than 25 years. And have done consulting work across the Southeast. So I've worked with lots of local governments, lots of local government staff. I would just say what I found to be just really refreshing, I'll go back to how sophisticated your staff is. In talking with them, and just in environmental health, the data that they were able to provide was just top notch, and I mean to the cooperative extension and talking with them, to the sheriff's office and the information that made made our job easier, but it also makes the data valid because they are professionals and they keep really good information. Also knowing that they're always wanting to improve, and talking with Dr. Pierce with the schools, we said, well, we know on average 0.49246 children, but if you had student generation data, we could say how many might go to elementary or middle. And he said, yes, that's something we need, and we're trying to figure out a way to fund that work. So, for example, larger school systems might even have a demographer on staff if you're a fast-growing community to do that. So I'll say that was the pleasant surprise. Was just how top-notch your staff is and the data and information that they have, and the ease at which it was that we were able to work with them. In terms of budget figures, nothing really like shocking or surprising. Yeah.
No, we like to brag on our people too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, any other questions or comments from Mr. Morris? Thank you so
Chairman,
much.
could I make one closing statement?
Absolutely. Please feel free.
You know, I know that some of my friends on the development side of the equation were apprehensive about this data. What this not, even though what you said is my same understanding. Residential, there's no study that shows that they pays for itself. But this is not a condemnation of residential. You've got to have residential in order to get the type of amenities you want in your communities and employers you want. You just got to have the appropriate balance. That's what I think the message out here. But the other thing about that too is that you've also got to ensure that your development profile does not overrun your resources or your ability to support it, be it water, sewer, roads, et cetera, schools. Yeah, we've constantly seen that. We've had to cap a lot of schools because the population's too great. And we've put a lot of money into schools in our community college, but we focused on workforce training, which I think has really improved our posture in terms of recruiting these large life sciences type of employers here. But we just keep it in context here. Like I said, it doesn't condemn residential construction. It just tells you that it has a place and it needs to be fitted into the overall scheme of things.
Good.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all very much. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for your questions and your scrutiny. I appreciate it. It means you
He
value the
started.
work. No, it means you value the work, so I appreciate it very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Child Fatality Prevention Team Annual Report, and I think Ms. Wilkins is here to provide that report for us.
Hello,
Welcome.
good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Wendy Wilkins. I'm the chairperson of the Child Fatality Prevention Team. That was an amazing presentation that she just gave. I am not an economist nor a mathematician, and that was a bit over my head. I like my numbers low because we're talking child deaths, and the highest number you'll hear from me today is 24. So it won't be that complicated. I did send you my report in an email a couple of weeks ago, so I won't go into the whole report. You can refer back to that. I'll try to be brief because I know there are people behind me that still need to go. But just a brief overview from its inception in 1991, North Carolina has had child fatality prevention teams. And the General Assembly requires that I come and tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So that's why I'm here. We're comprised of local, governmental, public, and private members. But what we do is we try to identify deficiencies in the delivery of services to children and families by public agencies, and we provide recommendations and initiatives that could be implemented at the state or the local level to try to prevent future child deaths. We review every child death in Johnston County. They may not have occurred in Johnston County, but they reside in Johnston County. Many of the deaths are actually in Wake County and Orange County and Durham County, because those are where the big fancy hospitals are, and that's where people will oftentimes expire. But child fatality reports are always a year behind. So this is the 2025 report that covers the deaths that occurred in 2024. It's always a year after, because sometimes the cases are not finished. If they're being investigated by law enforcement, it oftentimes takes a year for them to finish, and it takes about a year for the information to be gathered by the state and sent to us as well. Johnston County typically varies a little bit between 20 to 30 deaths a year. In that year, we had 24 child deaths, and we had 24 child deaths the year before that. So we didn't go up, but we didn't go down. The types of deaths that we did investigate during that year, we had 0 drownings. That was good. That was something that was better. I don't remember the year before, but 0 is always a good number. We had 6 motor vehicle accident fatalities, 7 premature perinatal conditions, 2 birth defects that were congenital heart defects, 6 illnesses, including leukemia, cancer, sepsis, diabetes, and a blood clotting factor, 1 unsafe sleep environment death, 1 choking, and 1 heat exposure that occurred in a car. Of those deaths, the 6 motor vehicle deaths, 4 deaths were in 1 accident. It was a car that had 4 teens in it. And our sleep-related deaths did go down. We had 3 in the previous year and 1 in this particular year, and we're happy with that. If you do percentages, statistics can be swayed. That's a 66% drop, which sounds huge, but it's really 3 to 1. But every child counts. So in conjunction with our efforts, the things that we do, and with CMARC, from the health department, Care Management for At-Risk Children, they work closely with us to promote the safe sleep initiatives in the county, and they provide not bassinets, but pack and plays to families who don't have safe sleep environments. And I think together it must be working. It must be working. Some activities that we've participated in and continue to participate in. We do a crisis referral. We have a referral form that we have distributed to law enforcement, medical examiners, emergency responders, and DSS personnel who are involved or at the scene of a child death. And this form is often completed and returned to me so that if the family has a need following the death, I can reach out to them and help refer them to different services in our community, whether that be mental behavioral health, maybe if their child was involved in a fire death, there's more things wrong that they will need help with than just the grief process. They're gonna need to rebuild and replace things that they lost. So we help to refer them to those types of services within the community as well. We are charged with doing intensive reviews, more than our usual review, that usually takes several days. We do intensive reviews on the deaths that have occurred within families who have had involvement with DSS or Child Protective Services to make sure that if there were services provided, you know, were they enough? Did something fall through the cracks? Was there something else we could have done? We didn't have to do any of those last year, which was great. I was very happy about that. But our main way that we distribute and disseminate information is through the local festivals and local community events. We do have representatives that attend those, sometimes with EMS, we're joining with them, sometimes we're with fire, sometimes we're with the health department, promoting some of these safe activities. Safe sleep is always a big one that we do, and I think it's working. And I hope it continues to work. One of the things that we've been working on lately is trying to get things out on social media. You know, we all know social media has taken over the world. And, you know, there are a lot of people who, they don't even watch the news. They watch their social media. So we try to put things out on social media within our groups and the groups that we go to, the groups that we represent. So we've put out some information on safe sleep. And just today, we put out some information on hot car deaths, because it is the summer and it's pretty hot outside. And, you know, we want to protect our kids as much as we can, knowing that most of those hot car incidents are accidents and can surely be prevented. So that's all I have for you. Just thank you for letting me come and share what we're doing.
All right.
That's all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Wilkins?
I'm sure you work closely with the DSS personnel. Do y'all ever get referrals to actually do preventive work with clients specifically?
Every now and then, DSS is a member of the team. There
Okay.
are at least two DSS members that
So
are
y'all
part
work
of the
closely
team.
together then? They can
so-
identify risk situations?
Yeah, so that they do provide us data and input, and they're at every meeting. We meet
Great.
quarterly. We used to have two facets to our meetings. There was a child prevention team meeting, and then secondary, there would be case studies that were current studies with DSS. With the new legislation, that's no longer there. So there was a little bit more talk before that was geared towards prevention in the present time, you know, when they would present
Yeah.
cases, family issues that they were having, you know, issues with, and it was like a team effort to say, hey, what can we do to help this family? This is what we've done so far. What ideas do you have? What can you bring that we can, you know, help this family with and help them to get, you know, on the right track? But they've compartmentalized us and separated us some now, and so now our focus is just the child fatalities, but DSS is still a part of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for your work on this, and the entire team. That's really important work that you're doing, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the report. Any other questions for Ms. Wilkins? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, item number 6 was removed from the agenda when we adopted, so item number 7 is the Health Department resolution to direct the expenditure of opioid settlement funds. And I see our Assistant Health Director, Mr. Steve Strickland. Mr. Strickland, good evening, sir.
He just had a birthday.
Commissioners, Dr. Pearson sends her regrets. She's out of town today, so I'm the fortunate person to be here to present this to get you to approve our resolution for opioid settlement funds to be spent in the coming fiscal year. But before I get there, I wanted to share some positive news with you. This money started coming to the counties back in 2022. Since 2023, our numbers are showing that we're seeing a positive impact in terms of what's happening with opioid overdose and fentanyl fatalities. The numbers are trending down. The emergency department visits are down by as much as 50% across the state for opioid overdose. Statewide declines in fatal overdoses is dropped by almost 34%. Hospital visits related to overdoses have decreased by as much as 20% per year after the last 3 years. Very positive information. I back that up with the latest information I've got for Johnston County. April 26, compare April 26 to April 25. In 26, we had 10 opioid overdose ED visits in Johnston County. In 25, we had 27 visits. Now, also would like to note, where did the overdose drug come from? Mainly from prescribed medicine, not illicit drugs that people normally think. So, making very positive strides with the services that we're putting in place in Johnston as well as across the state. That's great information to share with you. And of course, I want to talk about some numbers too. We are projected to receive Johnston County's share of opioid settlement funds over an 18-year period at $15.1 million. So to date, through FY26, which is almost over, we will receive $5,774,801 for those keeping up with the numbers. Now, our expenditures, starting in 2023 through 26, because we can go ahead and project it in there, is going to be $1,732,567. So we have a net surplus of $4,042,234 going forward, which is very positive news because I remember Mr. Godwin asking, how long is this money will last us? Well, it's coming in for 18 years, but we think beyond 18 years we'll have this money in place. In our budgets, in the current year, $1.1 million, we're going to spend about $700,000 of that. I look at a budget as a path forward into the coming year, but you should never spend more than what you have. And we always try to spend less. And as a matter of fact, in the current year, we're going to spend $762,000. Of course, we've had some job vacancies and things of that nature. Providers that did not fall into place. Dr. Pearson's big on talking about the strategy the option that we're choosing. There's two options to spend this money. One is high impact strategies that you put services in place to have an effect immediately, or option B, comprehensive strategic planning process. We chose option A, high impact strategies to take effect immediately. We have 8 of those strategies, one being collective strategic planning, which is staff at the health department, coordinating what we're doing there. And I will tell you that we have seasoned staff involved with these programs, putting them in place. You have oversight by Dr. Pearson and myself. So we think the quality of the services that we're putting in place is very effective in terms of having impacts in Johnston County. Evidence-based addiction treatment, like medical assisted treatment for opioid treatment programs, recovery support services, support of people with treatment or recovery, employment-related services, early intervention such as we have the Post Center out of Raleigh doing education in our schools. We have our Johnston County schools. We have a contract with them doing at-risk intervention with at-risk kids in the school system. And we have naloxone distribution, putting that in the fire departments, all law enforcement, schools, getting it out to the public, and doing training on narcotics. Post-overdose response team, our port team out of EMS, we have 4 full-time staff working there doing very effective jobs working with the community. and doing care management for clients that need services. And reentry program, which is a new one that we're going into in the coming year, where we've got folks that have been incarcerated. We're working with them to get them primary care, health care, training them to be able to go to their workforce, skill levels, things of that nature. So, our resolution, which you have, the first one is the collaborative strategic planning at $203,460. Second strategy is evidence-based addiction treatment at $99,500. Third is recovery support services at $125,882. Four is employment-related services at $100,000. And then we've got early intervention, where we've got 2 RFPs to post in our Wake County and Johnston County schools, doing interventions in our school, in our communities with the health education, naloxone distribution, $152,250 in naloxone training at $1,500. And then a post-overdose response team port, $597,500. And the last one's our reentry program for $100,000. Yes, that you support that, and I also want to note that in the coming year's budget, we did an RFP process, but we received 11 organizations presented strategies for us to take a look at. We had 6 people from outside the health department take a look at all those RFPs and prioritize what they thought was most important. Then the staff inside the health department prioritize even further. We were planning on funding 2. We had $200,000 in the coming year. We decided to fund 3 and to cut those budgets to $67,000 each to broaden the safety net of what we provide in these programs for our citizens. So, with that in mind, current year's budget, $1,128,524, going to $1,382,248, increase of $137,473. And we ask that you support this resolution 2627. Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On the 9th strategy having to do with reentry programs, do y'all have follow-up on that as to how that money's spent through those agencies?
I appreciate you asking that question, Mr. Godwin. We absolutely do. And with every program that we contract with, we get monthly reports, financial reports from them. And I have a staff that looks at those to make sure it is within the budget, it meets the guidelines. And I'll take a look at that and I'll approve every one of them. On top of that, we meet with each of these programs quarterly to make sure they're following the guidelines, but they're doing effective. If there's any financial questions or reports that's not coming in like it should be, we talk with them at that point in time, in person, quarterly. So I assure you that our staff is looking at these funds, how they're being spent, is it appropriate to make sure there's no audit exceptions whatsoever.
Good. I know some folks have been involved in it, and they've done well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for our Assistant Health Director? All right. Then
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to say how grateful we are for the work that y'all do, and it's amazing to hear those numbers come down. We've heard so many families come here and talk about, how they've been affected. I know we support a lot of organizations that help in this regard, so thank you for that positive information.
We are so fortunate to have a wonderful health department that's doing a great work for the citizens. We're blessed to have it. So, hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution
Thanks, sir.
adopted. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, item number 8, Human Resources Personnel Policy Additional Employee Benefits, and our Human Resources Director, Ms. Williams, is here to present. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me with you today. Today I'm here to talk about the request to add in additional employee benefits as it pertains to leave. In 2024, our Johnston County Human Resources Department conducted a study amongst other local governments in the state where we were looking at the benefits that were offered to their employees. Overall, in that study, we found that neighboring and comparable counties, as well as the state, offer a broader range of leave benefits than those that are currently available to employees. To help strengthen our recruitment and retention efforts, we respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the following amendments to the personnel policy effective July 1st. Adoption of the floating holiday leave policy, adoption of the bereavement leave policy, and repeal of the existing policy pertaining to married spouses of the county that have to share FMLA leave for certain reasons as it pertains to their leave time. Approval of these policies will enhance our ability to attract and retain employees, as well as ensure a highly competitive and qualified workforce. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Ms. Williams on the personnel policy, employee benefit changes?
How many holidays do we have now?
12.
12.
Mhm.
Okay. Before this addition?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
I came from private sector where we had 10, and I thought that was a gracious plenty. But don't let me be the flying armor to hurt retention or recruitment.
All right, any other questions or comments for Ms. Williams? If not, I'll hear a motion.
I think we've heard a lot already tonight, and we constantly hear or consistently hear how great our staff is. And so I think any measures we can take to make sure that we are attracting and recruiting, continuing to attract and recruit the best of the best is in the county's best interest. So I move to approve the additional employee benefits as presented.
All right,
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Floating holiday leave. It says provides eligible employees the option to observe a holiday or event that's not officially observed by the county, such as a nationally recognized or religious holiday, anniversary, birthday, etc. Who is the purpose that the employee wants to use? They have to get that pre-approved?
They would. So
Okay.
have to be approved in advance by their department head.
All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes carries. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, and then item 8A was the Johnston County Public Schools Clayton High School Construction Manager request, and I think Mr. Hester is going to provide some information on that for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. You know, the Clayton High School rebuild is underway, and there have been discussions between the county and the school system about the need for a construction manager. And so Johnston County Public Schools has an agreement in principle with a construction management team, project management consultants. This would be $12,500 per month, not to exceed $450,000 for 3 years. My question to Dr. Pierce was, hypothetically, if the project finished before 3 years, what would happen? He said they have a 30-day out clause, so they could enact that at that point. So I think and also we would propose paying these funds that the board chose out of Clayton High School bond proceeds, and would recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Hester or along this topic?
I would just say this is something this board has asked for, from before the project started, so I'm glad we finally got that worked out. And I think based on the information I've gathered, it's a quality firm that they've selected, so I would make the move to approve funding not to exceed $450,000.
Okay. Have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
I second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comments?
I think when we've done this with some of our projects, we've found that we've saved a lot more money than what it cost us to do this.
Yes, that's correct. All right, hearing no other, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Number 9, utility service agreement between Johnston County and the town of Wilson's Mills, and our attorney, Ms. Slusser, is going to present that information for the board. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I appreciate the opportunity to present a proposed utility service agreement between Johnston County and the town of Wilson's Mills. we've been talking with Wilson's Mills for several years about utility services and the need for coordinated planning and establishing procedures for providing utility services within particular service areas. One of the things that we had asked the town of Wilson's Mills to do, which they did do, was to undertake a utility study, and they did that in February of 2025. And the results of that study were that the feasibility of purchasing or taking over or starting a utility system within that town just was not economically feasible. In Johnston County, of course, we recently adopted the comprehensive land use plan, and one of the priorities of that land use plan was to attempt to push development where city centers, neighborhood centers, where population existed. And one of the things that we had talked with our towns about was leveraging those resources and working together to provide growth opportunities in those population centers. And so in our conversations with the town of Wilson's Mills, what we talked about was the need for an area, a utility service area in which the county, through its water districts, through its Johnston County public utilities, would be able to provide services and under what terms and conditions those services would be provided. And what was important to Johnston County and to the town of Wilson's Mills, we heard a little bit earlier in this meeting about the cost of community services and making sure that we have balanced development and those sorts of things. And what we talked with Wilson's Mills about was ensuring that their future development outside of the primary corporate limits was consistent with the county's comprehensive land use plan. That was very important to us. And one of the things that this agreement does not do is allocate any specific capacity to the town of Wilson's Mills. So what this does is it allows us to provide service in the same way that we would provide retail service to any other Johnston County customer. And that would be, whether it be in the primary corporate limits or in what's called the primary interest area. In the primary interest area, if it is residential development, that request for annexation would come through the town, and it would be vetted by the county public utility team, but you, as commissioners, would have the ultimate authority as to whether or not you would be willing to extend services to those particular areas. And of course, the factors that you would consider would be those public interest factors that you talked about tonight. The other thing, if it's commercial and industrial, it's a similar process, and it would be vetted, and there are specific standards that you would review, and we would treat these requests the way that we would treat any other requests that came before the Board of Commissioners. But the reason that we asked for it to be in this particular way is so that we could plan appropriately for the future and that we could conserve and preserve resources in the way that the board believed was in the best interest of the county, and to cooperate with Wilson's Mills with regards to its particular growth plans. Of course, there's no obligation for the town council to approve any annexation petition. Certainly, a project could come to this Board of Commissioners. You could say, we're willing to allocate or allow county utility services to be utilized for a project, and then the town could eventually decide not to approve that annexation petition. That's within the town's purview. What we are reviewing is adequate capacity and the utility infrastructure to actually serve. There's also no commitment that the county will make particular extensions or upgrades or those sorts of things. And of course, the way that it works with our retail customers and the way that it would work here is if those extensions and those sorts of things are needed, then the applicant or the developer would be responsible for that work. But I appreciate the town of Wilson's Mills and the effort that was placed in this process as we underwent these discussions and tried to come up with a solution that both assist the town of Wilson's Mills to grow in a responsible way, and also a way that provides limitations on the water and sewer services that the county is willing to provide under certain circumstances. And so at the end of the day, the recommendation from me and the staff that has worked on this utility services agreement is that you approve this proposed agreement. And again, all of the properties under this agreement would be retail customers of Johnston County, and it's on a first-come, first-served basis, just like it is for all of our other retail customers. And I would be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have about this proposed agreement.
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The feasibility study that the town did it have any projections forward of when it might be feasible?
It really was cost prohibitive throughout the analysis because, as we know, water and sewer infrastructure is one, it's finite, and two, it's expensive. And for the size of the town of Wilson's Mills, it would have adversely affected the ratepayers. And it just was not financially feasible for them to be able to do that without the assistance of the county and its water districts.
So we're looking at in perpetuity, likely.
Any other questions for Ms. Slusser, comments?
Ms. Lusser, just reiterating what I heard here, that, and my understanding is that there is no bulk allocation stipulated in this agreement, and any allocation would be on a case-by-case basis.
That is correct, yes, sir.
It comes to us. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
And I just wanted to say, as one of the members of Commissioner Stovall and Lauder and I, and of course with your help and a couple long days working with Wilson Mills, and I do want to applaud their willingness to work on this project. It was a little bit of a unique situation because most municipalities have a allocated capacity. They purchase that allocated capacity, and then they know what they've got to live within. And with Wilson's Mills, we didn't have such an agreement. And so for some of the people who might not quite understand why is Wilson Mills being treated differently, and it's because Wilson Mills doesn't have its own capacity. Each one of their customers inside of the town limits of Wilson's Mills are county retail customers. And so this whole process was not to give Wilson's Mills anything. It wasn't to take anything away. It was for us to work together so that we can plan for the future, so that we know we don't get a surprise that there's a giant subdivision coming and now all of a sudden, hey, county, you've got a supply of water and sewer to that. And so therefore, each of these kind of things that are coming up for the future, there's going to be a conversation and there's going to be able to be adequate planning. So Ms. Farmer and her team can make sure that everybody in the county has what they need.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And from a big picture perspective, because the town of Wilson's Mills does not own, maintain, or operate a public water or wastewater infrastructure system, they, from a legal perspective, would have difficulty buying bulk capacity because they don't serve retail.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was the best structure to be able to facilitate the needs of the citizens of the town of Wilson's Mills and also work cooperatively with the water district and the county public utility department. So from a big picture perspective, I think that this checks the box with regards to your land use plan and what the intent in your land use plan was. And number two, it provides a mechanism in which the town of Wilson's Mills and Johnston County can work together to plan for the future in a responsible way.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Slusser? I would like to thank Vice Chairman Lauder and Commissioner Rose and Commissioner Stovall for their efforts on this and many other water sewer related projects. We really, really appreciate their work and dedication on that. It's been a lot, and we're moving in the right direction. So,
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the utility service agreement between Johnston County and the town of Wilson Mills.
Okay. Have a motion on the floor. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, item number 10 is the fiscal year 2026, 2027 county budget discussion and/or adoption. This is a long process that we undertake every year. I think it started back probably in January, February. And there's a lot of folks involved. And Mr. Hester, thank you, and Mr. McLam and your team and all the department heads, everybody working together to try to really pull together something that's going to be usable for the citizens. And, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of parts and moving parts going forward. I also want to thank Vice Chairman Lauder for his work on this. He is taking the lead on the board and helping pull some things together. And this is an opportunity for us to have some discussion here. I know we've identified some things that we perhaps want to do differently next time. And I think our next budget process will be a little bit different moving forward, that we're going to kind of change the procedure some from what it's been over the years. And I think that's a good thing. It will be more transparent, more open, and more opportunity for citizens to have even more involvement, even though we've had, a lot of public input from different folks and had the public hearings here in this room pertaining to the budget. But, with that being said, I'm going to open up the floor and.
One thing, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
is
sir.
our finance department's really done a whale of a job with projections and what-ifs.
Yes, sir.
That we've had to go through.
They've done an awesome job, yes, sir.
Along those lines, I did want to say, you talking about the what-ifs, it's always tough when you're preparing a budget and the what-ifs and, what is our growth and revenue going to be, what are expense needs, the staff, we've talked about the need for that. This year we had the added complication of what will happen in Raleigh, constitutional amendment, and then after that. So there is a lot of unknowns, like I said, normally, and we have kind of a big one hanging out there that we tried to factor in as best we could on that. So when you kind of, I think, hear some of the other discussions, just know that that was in the back of our minds, if there's a cloud out there that we're not sure exactly what's going to happen. We know what's going to, there's going to be an amendment in November. After that, they will decide what exactly they're going to do, and that's where it gets real. So.
That's a good point. I think it would be prudent to point out now that this board over the last several years has identified 6 priorities, and those are educational funding, infrastructure, financial stewardship, land use, public safety, and county employees. And I think as we work our way through this budget, you'll see all those priorities incorporated in with this, and then trying to look out into the future and see what's going to be needed, to provide the level of service that our citizens want and expect, and make sure that public safety is taken care of, and that when you pick up the phone, you dial 911 and you get the ambulances or you get the law enforcement folks there on the scene. It's all that's important, and all of it costs money. So that's the challenge that we've been facing. So.
Yeah, I would agree, and to add to that, man, thinking back through what's been on the agenda tonight, with public safety, I know we pulled the one item of that, but we have discussed something related to all of those items tonight, even before we got to the budget. So, thank you for mentioning that. I hadn't thought about that. You started talking.
Good point. Anyone else who'd like to chime in on the process?
Well, when Mr. Lauder is driving the chariot this year, he's had conversations with each of us, and he had it broken down, and of course our manager makes a proposal and a draft copy of a budget, and as he points out to us, it's up to us to finalize that. And I found myself agreeing with Mr. Lauder, who was funding the school system and JCC at their request. But then I found myself agreeing with our manager on some of the other things. But I realize nobody gets all of the things they want. So there's an element of compromise to finally reach one. And I think I have gotten to that point. I'd love to see a 3-cent drop in the rate, but projecting forward, I don't know how we could meet all of our obligations and our borrowings that we need to do at that rate, but at least I think we're looking towards at least dropping the rate some.
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to comment on what I'd like to see going forward, and our manager has presented to us a balanced budget. and give us his best professional judgment of what it takes to achieve that. We have come through here and we've set our priorities, which is going to result in some increase to that overall budget. But there's really no offset to that increase having been discussed. It's just something we're going to absorb and move on. And my first inclination is if you're going to increase money over here, you need to decrease somewhere else to balance it back out, unless we can show definitively that we've got some other means to balance the budget than what's been presented. Fortunately, we have been very fortunate in a lot of our bond offerings. We've gotten premiums paid that allowed us to get cash back, where people are paying us to buy our loan paper. That's a good position to be in. That's resulted in millions of dollars that have come in that we can use as a balancing factor. But I see more and more uncertainty on the horizon because the General Assembly is going to do what they're going to do. And not only are they advancing a constitutional amendment that would limit both property taxes and corporate income taxes, and who in their right mind is going to vote against that? I mean, everybody don't want to pay more taxes. I'm one of them. But the other thing that they're doing is that there's quite a bit of influence on the development side of the equation that is pushing for restrictions of local government authority that really compromise our ability to react to certain things. One of which is the downzoning provision that has greatly impacted our ability to set new development ordinances that will allow us to manage growth. The other thing is there's a bill moving through right now that would allow vested rights to do residential development in any zone, not just zone for what we now have as AR, agricultural residential, commercial zones, industrial zones. If the owner of the property wanted to put residential in, we would have to allow them to do that if that bill passes. And that in itself would basically take all authority out of trying to execute a orderly land use plan and to balance your tax revenue come in based on property taxes. Our formula we got here tonight is going to give us a tool to be able to forecast that. But the General Assembly could do some things that basically would throw all that out of the window and put local governments in a tailspin. So those are some things that we were dealing with here that made these choices, at least in my mind, somewhat problematic and troubling. I'm done.
Yeah, I was going to say the couple of things, and you'd mentioned the priorities, and when I look at the public schools, and we've talked about the growth that they're not seeing, but the things we're able to do, I traditionally have looked at a inflation factor, which I've used 3% this year, and I think the school system used something close to that. They said less than 3. Didn't give us an exact number because I think some of their things were higher than 3 and some were lower. But when I took that and even applied the growth rate, which they had projected of 0.4%, I was pretty close to their number. When you added in a new high school, I think they had said that was like $1.5 million. I was really close to their number, and there were a couple other things they had factored in there that I had not. So I felt like this was probably, at least for me, the closest to what I thought was a reasonable number that they've been. And then on the capital side, we've debated for years of what is the right number. I think we're moving in the right direction on that. There's they got some chiller replacements. Again, they've got some first-time costs due to Wilson's Mills, but some other things they need to take care of on there. I still would like to see them move towards some sort of number where we can look at a facility's level of service. And I think we'll get there. I think we'll be in that same boat. But I was let me say, remarkably pleased that at least I thought how reasonable their numbers were. And I think it was a total of 5%, or 5.7% increase, something like that this year. The community college, on the operations side, I mean, they've grown 61% in the last 3 years. Their salaries, much like we found ourselves in 2018, were compressed, low. There were a couple of factors where they didn't ask for pay increases. So they did a salary study very similar to us. And so this is a catch-up time. And a lot of the increase there was for salaries, and we talked about recruitment and retainage, and, they are trying to stop, just as we did, stop people from leaving and going to Wake County or somewhere else close by. They're trying to maintain their healthcare workers, particularly the upper level that are the ones leaving to go to Wake County, to make sure we have the best and brightest instructors in healthcare, and also in IT, as in we all know that the things that coming up, I'm certainly not smart enough to keep up with all that, so we've got to have good folks who are maintaining that. The other thing is under the general fund is the staffing, and I know we had the manager's recommendation, but when we looked at the request, and when I look over here in public safety is on our top priorities, and we had requests from the Sheriff's Department. You can find my notes here. The Sheriff's Department and the public safety, the emergency services, also others that we felt like were critical to meet our priorities. So a lot of things there that, again, I think this board felt like were critical to us providing the services that we needed for our residents. And I don't think there was a way that we could, honestly not provide particularly emergency services where we say, no, we're not going to do that when we sit up here and we're all looking at public safety. Public safety is one of our priorities. And then the nonprofits, I will say, Ken, and I'll go ahead and say what we looked at the process that we go through. We looked at who's asking for money and what they were asking for, and we had this discussion last year about, do we end this process? And the answer this year was, we are going to end the process this year, and we'll work out how they can contract with departments if appropriate to continue their funding. But when we looked at those, we know they were going into this year expecting some revenue, so the board's decision was we'll repeat last year's funding levels, and we will give an early notice that next year that there would not be a nonprofit distribution in our process to apply for that. So I think that was a tough decision for the board, but we felt like there was a better way through potentially contracting the services than it was for us to sit up here and, I hate to say pick winners and losers, but that's kind of what, because they all provide great services for us. So I think those were things and some of the reasons that we made the decisions we made. Into Commissioner Godwin's point on the tax rate that we were looking at, there was basically three numbers. 49 was the lowest, and so I think we kind of balanced out. What is that dark cloud? We've got some things we want to get done. We've got some financial models we want to maintain. We've seen our bond ratings be able to save us. I mean, getting people paying us to borrow, $9 million to when we go to borrow money. So we've seen that be cost effective, and we didn't want to impact that. And again, the state, the potential for the things that they have out there that we don't know exactly what that is, probably restricted us from doing a little bit of what we wanted to do. But again, to be financial stewards, I think we've got to be responsible and weigh out the risk of just cutting for the sake of cutting, and then turn around next year and having to do something different and go back to raising. So that's some of the thoughts that I had that we went through. I do want to thank the staff for being able to put the models together, and the department heads for getting all that information. We heard today from Ms. Morphus how the staff had the information right at their hands, and I think that helps us because we chase a few squirrels, and it is vital to us to be able to have staff that can respond to changes and run scenarios for us. And again, finally to this board, I've called it odd hours, to talk long hours to folks, but I do appreciate that, and a lot of hard work went into it. And so I think going forward next year, I think this is the first time we've had, and there's going to be, I'm sure, more discussion after I finish talking about it, but we've heard people ask for transparency, and so we are moving to provide. I think next year when we go to two budget meetings in April, there will be more input, we'll have more discussion, and so we won't be sitting here on June the 15th in the last 2 weeks to have discussions. We will have them in April, and have public involvement, and the public will be able to hear what we're thinking and really what departments and other groups are asking for as part of our process. So with that, I'll be quiet and let some other folks have an opportunity to explain kind of their process.
All right, I'll go next. So to piggyback off what Commissioner Stovall was mentioning with the some things being up in the air with the State General Assembly and everything, I would like to say last year was a very tough budget. We were coming off the historic reval, and it was kind of like trying to throw a dart at a dartboard that hadn't even been put on the wall yet. We really didn't know where it was going to be. I think that our staff did an amazing job of getting us to projections really close, even with a lot of unknowns. But I would like to remind everyone that the reason that so many people's taxes went up disproportionately with one another last year, was because of the rules that the General Assembly makes us follow. So it's as if that now we did exactly the rules that we did a reval within 8 years. We reassessed property values as the General Assembly says we are required to do. And because we did all of these things, the market had decided that some people's house was 300% more expensive and some people's was 20% more expensive. It wasn't Jocelyn and the tax office who decided that. It was the market who decided that. And so it was an impossible task last year to mathematically put a number that affected everybody equally. So I do find it a bit ironic that the very General Assembly that put forth those guidelines and made us do those things is now somehow wanting to jerk the rug out from under us from doing what we were supposed to do. But on this year's budget, I've sat through a lot of difficult budgets on the Princeton Town Board. And I will say that when you work on a small budget, I think our budget many years between the general fund and the utilities fund was maybe $3 million. You know, we're talking about a fund, general fund that's north of 400 now in this budget. And so what we would see every year, and it became very evident, government gets more expensive every year because our employees deserve, and they deserve a little bit of pay raise. There was 3%, 4%, whatever you add to that. The police chief might need a new car. The pipes are more expensive than they were last year. The backhoe broke down. All these things happen, and they make everything a little bit more expensive every year. So those of us, and me included, who wish that next year the cost of doing government would go down a little bit. It's hard to happen. I don't think it's going to be able to happen. So having said that, the two things I found were 100% true when you were trying to do a budget for a small town and a county. Is the only way that you can move forward is you can increase your tax base or you can increase the tax rate, and because that top number is going to grow a little bit every year. It might be just a little bit, but somehow. And so when you're trying to figure out how to get the police chief a new car and you're trying to figure out how to give your people a 3% pay raise over last year, the number's a little bit more than it was last year. So I applaud our county manager for giving us a very, I think it was a 2% total increase. That's what he projected to us. And I think that was a very fair number, and we've had to add a few more things to it because we've seen needs to this. But let me say that what is being projected here is probably around a $20 million increase when it's all said and done. We don't have the number yet because we're going to make a motion on that. But let's just say it's $20 million out of 400, and last year it was 412, so let's just say it's in the 430s this year. That would mean a 5-cent tax increase because it's about 4.7 cents per. 4 cents. I mean, a penny generates about $4.7 million. So in order to figure out how to sustain, how to give our employees a pay raise, how to build Clayton High School, how to fund our public school system and give JCC the things they need, it's going to cost a little bit more than it did last year. So are we going to raise tax 5 cents just to cover it, just to break even? Well, thank goodness we got a growing county that has been able to grow at a rate where people are wanting to move to Johnston County, and that number is growing. And so, as Commissioner Lauder stated, we're looking at can we stay the same? Can we even decrease that rate? So instead of going up 5 cents, we've all been talking about how can we get it down even a penny or two penny or two doesn't mean a tremendous amount, but I hope it shows the public that we are taking serious, that it is the public's money, and we're not, and that 1 penny won't be a lot to each individual, but it'll be $4.7 million that the county could probably use somewhere, but we don't want it if we don't need it. We want you to have it. So that's what I would like to say about this budget. We've worked really hard. Hats off to Commissioner Lauder, as everyone said, and Chad. I don't know if Chad's been mentioned, but Chad has put a lot of models for us to, every time we ask for a new model, it's within our inbox, so within a few minutes. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Commissioner? You have anything you want to add?
No, just along the same lines of what the other commissioners have said. You know, there's a lot of discussion and thought that goes into this, and, you know, in an effort to be transparent, I really am excited for next year where we're giving it more time. I feel like every year it feels a little bit like a race for everybody to get their information in and requests in. And, you know, I really encourage everyone in the county that if there are needs, if there are requests, that they start the conversation sooner than later, because as we get down to the wire to Commissioner Rose's sentiment, more and more comes in that we need to take into consideration. More and more has to be discussed and thought through, and we just want to make sure that we are being as transparent as possible. We are talking about this as much as possible and listening as much as possible, and making sure that the decisions that we're making are what's best as a whole for the county. So,
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add one other thing. I know that Vice Chair Lauder mentioned that our ability to borrow money with a AAA rating allowed us to get people are paying us to borrow money from us. That premium, but it also gives us the lowest possible rates are out there on the bond market, and that saves us literally millions of dollars in interest. And we could not undertake the capital needs of this county, both the government and the schools, without borrowing that money. Pay as you go as a capital funding strategy is no longer available to any government. Things are just too expensive. You can't talk about undertaking a $100+ million project without borrowing the money to do it. So borrowing it at the lowest rate possible is going to save us the most money. And why are we building is because the demand for services is pushing that need. You know, we have said that for a number of years now that we're busting at the seams over at DSS, the health department, and the courts are the same way. You know, these are essential government services that have to be met. And that's the reason that we are pursuing capital in those areas other than education alone to do that. So maintaining that AAA rating, in my mind, is one of the things that we've got to be at the top of the list each year we do a budget, because that's going to ensure prosperity and ability to maintain a level of service that our citizens expect and need.
All right, very good. Yeah, I think the thing that I look at when we finish up, and each year we look at the budget, I look at what the results are. You know, what's the result? The results are we had 200 mobile classrooms, and now we're down to less than 50 in the county. That's results. When I look at, we're graduating more young people from Johnston Community College than we ever have in the history of the college. One of the fastest growing community colleges in North Carolina. In the country. That's results. That's changing people's lives. That's generational changes to their families. They might be the first person in their family to ever get a higher education. They can go out and get, and we're pushing certification programs too. I mean, there's great jobs in electricians and plumbing and welders and all those things that people can make great livings doing. And we're providing those training opportunities now at the community college. And so is it worth putting the money into it? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. We're investing in the future of the people of this county. You know, when I look at the pay study that Vice Chairman Lauder alluded to about the community college, it was really a difficult situation because we're teaching nurses. We're teaching future nurses to work in the hospitals and the ICUs and the health departments. And we can't hire the nursing instructors because the pay was so low. This budget that we're getting ready to wrap up here is going to fix that problem. You know, you can't expect a nurse to leave a hospital and go over there and work for 40% less than what they're making working shift at the hospital. It's the same thing with EMS instruction. We're training paramedics. We just did a paramedic graduation, one of the biggest ones we've had, I think, in the history of the college. The fire academy graduation was one of the largest ones. It's really inspiring to see all that's going. But that's where the results comes in. That's what you get for the money. The Workforce Development Center that's in 4 Oaks, Advanced Manufacturing Facility. I get the names wrong. Workforce Development Center is in Clayton, Advanced Manufacturing Facilities in 4 Oaks. Those are game changers. Those are game changers for our children, our grandchildren, the people that are going to live in this county and grow and work here and provide employers workforce. This is a game changer. And so when I look at a budget every year, I think, what's the result? What are we getting for that? And I think when you look at it, you'll see that there's a lot of results that has come out of really the last several years. But this budget in particular, I think you'll see a lot of results for the citizens of the county. Any other comments or discussions? Mr. Vice Chairman?
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the county manager's proposed budget with the following adjustments. Reduce the property tax rate from 52 cents per $100 valuation to 51 cents. Appropriate $116,300,000 to Johnston County Public Schools for supplemental current expense and $5,478,000 for capital outlay. Appropriate $14,659,500. Let me try that again. That's a big number. $14,659,564 to Johnston Community College for supplemental current expense and $3.1 million for capital outlay. Implement pay adjustment of 3% in July and the possibility of a 2% performance-based increase in October. Add $2.3 million to ad valorem revenue estimates. Add $3.5 million for bond transfer revenue based on recent bond sales. Reduce debt service by $1.2 million based on recent bond sales. Increase the open space fees from $1,000 to $1,200. Appropriate $1,550,000 to fund the following 24 general fund positions with the earliest start date of October 1, 2026. Those are 7 for the Sheriff's Office, 5 for 911 communications, 8 for emergency services, 1 for building inspections, 1 for cooperative extension, 1 for public health, and 1 for animal services. Also appropriate $33,000 to the Visitors Bureau for half the cost of new software. And for nonprofit funding, appropriate the following: $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club, $325,000 to Harbor Inc., $10,000 to Johnston County Arts Council, $100,000 to Johnston Health Hospital Foundation, $50,000 to Partnership for Children, $23,700 for Smithfield Rescue Mission, $15,000 for Special Olympics, and for Triangle Land Conservancy, $155,000, with the understanding if they have additional partnership opportunities to bring before the board for consideration. And Mr. Chair, that is the motion.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The fiscal year 26-27 budget has been adopted. Thank you. Thanks for all your work on that. Item number 11 on the agenda is the manager's reports and comments. Mr. Hester, do you have anything? And I think you also had Mr. Newton.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Newton was going to update about UDO, if that's okay.
All right, there you go. Mr. Newton, welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. I will not take very much of your time. Our update this evening really relates to the schedule for the proposed UDO. You have before you, there's actually two drafts of a proposed schedule. You were forwarded those earlier today as well. And there's a slight difference in the two. It gets us to the finish line a little bit earlier with one, a little bit later on the other, but you will see a slight difference there. What we're asking for, and no decision for by this board tonight, but we are asking that you review these two proposals and let us know your thoughts and comments on either and your preference. Draft one of the proposed new schedule does get us to a completion date around the first week or the first meeting of November. And the alternate Schedule 2 gets us to that same adoption date or for the UDO in December, the first week of December, or that first meeting in December. You will see in there as well, it does include a community meeting that would occur either in Draft 1 in September, in early September, and in Draft 2 in late September with, and that community meeting would be a drop-in session similar to that we had on the second half or second portion of the town hall meeting back in earlier in the year. So staff is just requesting that some feedback from the board on either of the two draft proposed schedules to get us to the finish line on this document.
Mr. Chair, I had a comment on that.
Yes, sir.
I know
All right.
Mr. Newton has said we didn't need to provide direction tonight, but we don't meet again until July the 20th. So I would think we would probably need to give you some direction tonight, not only for you
would
and
be
the
beneficial.
consultant, but also the public, to be, and I know that's a little bit different from what we normally do, but given the history of this and making sure that we want to know the public is aware.
Absolutely.
And it gives our PIO staff time to get information out there and all the other resources we have now to get it out there to make sure the public knows when things are coming. And my preference is that we look at draft one, where we can have a chance to finish it before the end of the year in case something goes wrong. If we miss that December 7th meeting, it's going to be January before we get to it again. So my preference would be we move forward with the proposed schedule, term draft one.
My calendar, November comes before December, so I'd like to see November as well.
Okay.
I concur.
Okay. Everyone good with draft one?
Yes, and one thing I would like to just make sure that in those 21-day green blocks there, that we're able to maybe have some small group sessions with the commissioners so that you guys can go over the major points. I mean, if I guess, if somebody's able to review it completely on their own, that's fine, but I would really love to have a few days to review it and then let you guys so we can all make sure that we're on the same page. And if there is something that we would like to have updated, we'd have a chance to do that in that 21 days.
We can certainly do that. So we'll approach that in the same manner as we did as we were going through the process earlier. We had several sessions in a single day. Typically is what we've done. We've done them in a couple or 3-hour blocks. I think we can make that happen.
Thank you.
All right, so you got a general direction from the board. Is that all you need? We don't necessarily.
That's all I need. We don't need anything
All
else.
right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Newton? All right.
Let me clarify one thing.
Yes,
As far as posting to the website, version 3 in its complete form, under this schedule, we're looking at August 4th is when that would be available on the website, and it'll run through the first week of September, 30 days.
It'll run longer than that, but we give that really a period. That's just a placeholder. It'll run longer than that. It'll be on the website. It'll be open for comment throughout until adoption.
Understood, but I guess the key date is August 4th. That's the
Yes, sir.
day we're shooting for to have that completed document available for public review.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think the important thing, and from my perspective going forward on this, is that we have an opportunity to make sure as a board that we understand and we're completely in agreement with this. And then the citizens have plenty of time to look through this and understand it and ask their questions, and so that everybody can have a feeling of understanding, and there won't be so much confusion going forward on this. I think that's from my perspective what I would like to see.
And I'll take one moment, if you will, if you'll oblige. I think it was mentioned earlier tonight, legislation, there is some legislation that is impactful to this document again. So we're monitoring that very closely. and we are evaluating those impacts if that legislation or those pieces of legislation are approved or ratified, what that impact is currently. So we're looking at it. It's a moving target though, but we are looking at that as it occurs.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Hester, do you have anything else that you want to ask? All right, we'll go to board reports and comments, and I'll start with Commissioner Stevens.
I have several. I just wanted to say I'm very encouraged by the amount of people that are starting to come to the meetings. You know, I think we say it, I don't know how much it's heard, but we really want the feedback. We want to get belly to belly. We want to hear the concerns, and believe it or not, you know, I think it's no surprise. It's hard for us, or it's hard for me to sit on my hands during public comment and not respond back. It really is. But again, it's important that we listen, and I want, you know, all of our citizens to know that their voices truly are heard. And, you know, we heard a lot tonight about transparency, about, you know, meeting and talking through things. And that's literally what these meetings are for, you know. So I want to continue to encourage anyone that is coming to these meetings to stay and listen and take notes and send us an email with your questions, and, you know, let us try to explain so much of the process, because there was a lot of information tonight that I think was misconstrued or misconveyed, unfortunately. You know, several things, and I don't want to rebut or speak specifically, but, you know, it's really exciting to know that we just passed a budget and we fully funded what the school board requested. You know, when I first came on the board, that was a hard conversation for us to have. It was a long conversation, and we're not only now able to fulfill their full request, but also look at how can we manage and maintain our schools moving forward. It's not just playing catch up anymore. We're truly, you know, to the point that was made where we've almost completely eliminated mobile classrooms. We are caught up in our school buildings. We're where we need to be with regards to that. And I think some of that gets lost in translation. And I think a lot of it happens when you only listen to the first part of the meeting and you don't hear the rest. You don't hear the resolutions that we are coming up with. So I really want to encourage anyone out there to show up, attend, and listen, and then send us your questions. We want to answer that. And, you know, to the point that several of you made with regards to the budget, you know, yes, there's a lot of things coming down on a federal and state level that we are watching closely. But one thing that we've been watching even closer is our fund balance, is being conservative and having, you know, managers that make sure that we are saving for a rainy day, that we're not, you know, these changes may present challenges without a doubt, but I feel like we have, as much as we possibly could, proved our budget to make sure that we are still protecting the citizens of this county and the services that we provide to those citizens. So, you know, to the point of the AAA bond rating, you know, having that golden credit score, if you will, for organizations, it really does go far in the grand scheme of things. And I wish more people were still here to hear that. So if I say anything, it's just I really encourage people to stay and listen and contribute to the conversation. It's always welcomed.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rose?
Well, I would like to say that I'm excited that we were able to at least knock a penny off. I know it's not a lot, but I think it represents a true commitment by this board that that every dollar is sacred, and we treat it that way, and that we seriously would have loved to maybe make that even a little bit lower, but I think we came to a good compromise. It is 7 of us that all have to come together and make a decision. Another thing I was kind of proud of is I don't guess this really matters a lot, but when you look at our surrounding counties, Wake, Wilson, Harnett, Sampson, all of our surrounding counties that are right there touching our border, we will now have the lowest tax rate in the region. I think Wake County went up to 53.7. Wilson, if my numbers are right, around 59.5. Harnett around 59, and Sampson at like 68. So I feel like you know, there's a lot of factors there, but I do think that is something that we can take back to our citizens and say, we are truly trying to be responsible and keep the taxes as low as possible, that we can do, as Chairman Harris says, make sure that when you call 911, somebody's coming, that's qualified, and that, our schools are top-notch, and all the things that we are required and should be doing. There's a saying that I've often been saying for a lot of years that I thought I actually came up with it, but evidently Abraham Lincoln said it first. So, but my version was, that government works best when it does for us as a whole what we can't do individually. We can't go out and build a road or a school or a hospital as individuals, but we can all pitch in a little bit and do it. And so I'll read the actual quote from Abraham Lincoln, and it said, "The legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all, or cannot so well do for themselves." And so I think that is a guiding principle that we really keep in the back of our mind, that we realize that the function of government is to provide for our citizens for the things that we can all work together as a whole to get done.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Stovall, you want to follow that? You have a quote?
I don't have a quote.
Okay.
But,
You're going back to Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
give me taxes or give me death. Actually, what I'd like to say is that I think we're entering a new phase in terms of budget deliberation. Hopefully we have caught up on our school capacity with the Clayton High School, but there is a looming bill coming out there, and it's for infrastructure, it's existing facilities. We've got quite a bit invested in not only new facilities, but existing facilities, and we have seen that already. The school system is making some inroads to try to address that. We've authorized a little over $5 million of additional capital, with the understanding that they're going to replace a couple of chillers of that and do some other building improvements as well. But the school was fortunate enough thinking that they'd had a facility condition assessment done of their facilities, I think about 2 years ago, and it indicated that there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars worth of needs out there that are going to have to be addressed. And we can't ignore that. If we're going to continue to use these buildings and let them have to be acceptable places for kids to go and learn, then we're going to have to come in and refresh these building systems and the finishes in these buildings on some sort of recurring frequency, and that costs money. So that's one of the things I have in the back of my mind I'm concerned about with the potential changes at the General Assembly, what they can do. They limit our ability. That's another reason I say this AAA bond rating is so important. It gives us the ability to borrow money that allows us to get these things done. And we need to keep that at the forefront as we have these deliberations in future years.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Godwin.
I think the rest of Abraham Lincoln's quote was, "Government shouldn't do for a man what a man should do for himself." The budget time brings a lot of extra work for everybody, especially the staff. They've done a great job. But I also want to commend Commissioner Lauder, because he's been in touch with us individually, and as Dr. No here, he had to help me hammer out a compromise that we could all come to a consensus with. So I appreciate his effort as well as all of them. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I want to add. I want to thank the Johnston County Board of Education for their cooperation. Oh, I forgot about you.
I think it's becoming a habit here.
We talked so much about you tonight.
I'm going to lean over this way from now on.
I figured you were letting him have the last word, since he got such praise on the budget process.
I can do that. Go ahead.
I did want to talk about the budget process. A little slide over here.
Yeah, come on.
The budget process. I did want to point out, although last year, we cut the budget after the tax rate after a revow, and there was not a lot of appreciation for how much we cut it, because we still could have done more. But I did want to point out that this is I think the 9th budget for the two of us, and Commissioner Godwin has been here as well for those. But we have cut the rate 8 out of the 9 years we've been on the board together. So, not always as much as people want, but we have been fiscally conservative, maintaining a bond rating, and yet still trying to reduce the tax rate as much as we can. With that said, I can't say how excited I am about the process next year. We got probably for the first time had some discussion in front of the public about how we got to where we are. But again, with next year where we're going to add a couple of budget sessions where we can have the discussion before the 2-week deadline to get it done, then the public, and we can receive input. We will have the organizations who are asking for money and we are providing funds for come to us and make their presentations for all to hear. So I'm excited about that process. Changing gears a little bit, one thing as we've been going through this UDO process, and we've talked about farmland preservation and what that means to Johnston County, to Commissioner Stovall, it may not be about the dollars and cents of what agriculture brings in or what it costs, but it is a quality of life and a feeling when you can ride and you can take your grandchildren, you can ride through, I'm gonna say through the country and see that does provide a quality of life that we have that Wake County frankly doesn't have anywhere near what we have in some of the other bigger counties. But through all the talks on that, I will say we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us because during all the contentious discussions we've had in the UDO, one thing that has been a common thread, whether you're in the development community or you're in the farming community, or if you're just an average citizen who lives in Johnston County, there is a lot of support for working together and going to Raleigh and going to DC, the folks there, and asking for additional funding for farmland preservation. We heard Mr. Walker mention the opportunity for $12 million worth of farmland. We can't do that as a county as a whole. So I will say, despite what's been happening in the UDO, one thing that has really stood out to me is the willingness of all people to come together to go to seek support in Raleigh and in DC for increasing the funding for farmland preservation. And I want to finish with probably the highest note, and we've talked about this a lot tonight, but to have somebody else from the outside come, as Ms. Morphus did tonight, and you say, what is the biggest wow you had about this process? And it is our staff. I think just it explains why county employees are on that list because we can't thank, and we got a few in here, but we got a bunch of you who maybe are watching, maybe the word will get to you, but do a tremendous job every single day. And, we want to make sure that we keep you, and we want to make sure that we hire more people like you. So when we look at the numbers for our staff and what we try to do for them and the personnel policies and things we do, it is because we know we have great people working for Johnston County. And again, I can't say enough. It starts at the top and goes all throughout the organization. So thank you to all our county's employees for all that you do for us each and every day.
Thank you. Well said. I'll definitely echo that over the county employees. That's a huge priority. We can set policies, we can have meetings, and we can do lots of things, but it takes the people out there actually providing service to the citizens to make it work. And we got an extraordinary group of people that work every single day to provide excellence in service. And so thank you for all that you do for that. I also do want to extend a thank you to the Johnston County Board of Education and also the Dr. Pierce with the school system and also Dr. Lindquist with the community college and the Board of Trustees at Johnston Community College. We've got a great working relationship with these folks, and it's great to be able to sit down at the table and try to work through, what the challenges are for the future and what we can do to cooperate together to serve the people of Johnston County. And so that being said, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into the budget and all the work that goes into the operation of the county government every single day. So thank you for what you do. With anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move with adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Board is adjourned.
Yay.
A lot of work putting out.